Oh, that's like this collection. There were 5 juniors.
Oh, did that? Yeah, that's Tuesday. That was great. We actually had almost double trees. So it's like 13 trees or 4 months. We had like 6 before, so we went from like 4,000 square feet to like 9,000 square feet. So 10% of the lot.
That's pretty cool. That's I guess we're going to see after this.
Exactly. My hope is that you guys are okay with it. Me too.
You're doing all the plans, you're just using the driveway, and then you gotta add more trees, you don't have much trees. You gotta just rip out the yard.
I'm just in here and down to just let 1/3. So the first 7 inches.
Hi, Fred. Okay. Sometimes people like to have like boards, they look off the board, but then this one's stuck around the everything's going pretty well.
Yeah, we're down to 5 tonight.
Yeah.
No. Because we're gonna go through trees first, so.
Oh, do you want to do that?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna go for 60-year-old.
Yeah.
We're gonna first talk about we're gonna talk about the buffer area. So present that. We'll talk about that. Get some more confirmation that yes, indeed, we think that'll pass muster with the ZBA. That's something we're comfortable representing. And then we'll move into the rest of the house.
Okay. All right. I wasn't sure if we wanted to do it kind of like talk about the whole project.
No, I would do the trees first. Hey Steve.
Sorry, I'll try not to go back to
Yeah, we did there's still a center area that's pretty clear. Yeah, and then there's in that buffer zone that's supposed to be restored. Most of it is going to be back, but there's still a few thin spots, so they're going to have to reclaim that. So, kind of game plan for this one is tonight. First thing to look at is, do we think they're meeting the restoring the side? So that's the first question. If we don't think they are, then
We're just taking out trees and.
if they do, then we start looking at the The ZBA enforcement order doesn't think they had to put in the 30-foot buffer zone. Restore it. I used this to restore the lot because they had cleared it. Because they had done it before and cleared it. Well, 20 years ago. So yeah, it was like it's a 1999 or 2001. So yeah, it's been quite some time that property's been sitting there. But the enforcement order has never been compliant. They've never done the restoration they were supposed to. So now the lot's been sold to these folks, and they're willing to. Well, they weren't willing at first, but we've had to like push them to do something. So they've proposed a plan that basically keeps everything out of that 30-foot buffer, and then in the areas where it's thin, they've replanted some saplings that should grow up.
Okay, we've reached our appointed hour.
Kim's reviewed it.
It's 7:32, and we'll begin the planning board meeting tonight. So first item on the agenda is citizens' comment. Anybody have a comment on anything not on the agenda tonight? Yeah?
I just wondered if you could share any new information about what's happening with the 40B. Oh, I'm Barbara Fullerton, not 3 Winter Street.
Yes.
The 40B that's proposed on Route 30,
Yes.
do you have any new information?
I think the best place for that is probably the zoning board meeting. We're not hearing any 40B matters.
Okay,
Great. And does someone know the next meeting for that on Route 30?
I don't know.
I don't think there is a meeting scheduled.
There is a meeting scheduled, and I believe it's in October. The next one, the next ZBA meeting
Is Monday.
is Monday, yeah, that's for 751 Boston Post Road.
So the best place to ask that question is the ZBA meeting on Monday, at citizen comment time. They can give you their latest.
Actually, I was distracted because Imai was the one who had presented the data at the ZBA meeting, so I thought maybe that would be something that we could,
Okay.
you know, the 1.6%.
Yeah, yes. I mean,
So that's why I thought maybe
Oh,
that would be something we could.
I can share with you that there will be we'll make a statement from the town on that calculation at the Monday meeting.
Okay,
So I think whatever questions you have on that will probably be answered. I hope.
great,
Yeah, great.
thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I wanted to let people know we have a very tight agenda tonight, so I apologize if I attempt to be as economical as I can with our words up here, but I think you all would appreciate that. So we'll begin with the public hearing on the, from Eversource, tree removals for the scenic road right-of-way work. So who's the applicant? Is it Chris?
I think Chris Gonzalez.
Great, fantastic. So you're going to present, Chris?
I was not planning on presenting.
I'll start by kind of going over the process of what we want to go for here. So, just to cue us up here, here's what how I wanted to go about this tonight, because the application, I believe, is in total for 160 trees. That's not what we're reviewing tonight, but we're going to review a chunk of them tonight. We did do site visits on this, and there were certain trees that we agreed should be removed. Certain trees we all agreed on the site visit should remain. And then there were about 5 trees that we thought needed further discussion. So the trees that we agreed to, I was hoping to handle kind of like a consent agenda. If everybody just agrees to that, we can move on.
Very economical.
Yeah, we can move on with that. With that in mind, though, I did want to, give you folks a fair shake at taking a look at these.
How many trees were agreed to?
I have it here.
Right.
51 to agree to remove, 16 to agree to keep.
Okay,
And that's out of how many total requested?
I think it's 66.
66 were total?
I was
Yeah.
just adding the 2.
Yeah, and then there's, add in the,
5.
And then there were 5 others.
yeah, add in the 5 others. So these are all the trees that we agree on. So if there's anything in there that, as you're perusing this, you want to make note of. And then the second sheet in here is for the second part, when we get into the trees that we're going to discuss. Those are that is our arborist write-up of the trees that we're discussing
Just to
tonight.
explain to everyone, when we say agreed to, there were site visits to each of these trees,
Yeah.
and who was on that site visit?
So on that site visit were members of TAG were on it, of the Tree Advisory Group. Barbara was on the first one, along with, who else was on that one? Kristen was on that, Kristen Barbier was on that one, and then from the planning board, Leslie Glenn was on the first site visit. Leslie and Sue were on the second site visit.
Okay,
And I was
So-
on the second side.
Yes.
okay. And then Chris from Eversource was,
Yep, I was on all of this.
and then we had an arborist.
Yep, our arborist, Clay Morse is in the back there. He was
Okay.
on all the site visits
So
as
when we
well.
say agreed, it's everyone that we just described agreed that the tree was either kept or the tree was removed.
And I was on
Okay.
the south and the town center.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did those last Friday, and this morning we just did the other ones. We're not discussing those trees right now. We haven't gone,
Oh,
gone through to,
Okay, and
what's prepped right now to be discussed is just these two, the Concord Merriam, Lincoln, and Concord and
so
Sudbury.
where there was an agreement was 5 trees.
Was 5 trees.
And we're gonna hear on each of those 5 trees in a minute?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So the first decision before us is to agree on their agreements.
Yeah. is to bless that.
Any comments from the audience on those matters? The trees that were agreed to. Okay, Steve, any comments on these trees that were agreed to?
Agreed to remove? Or
Agreed, yes, exactly.
not yet.
You want to take some time to look at it?
Couple minutes.
Okay, great.
That was approved for the sidewalk, yeah. So actually, that one, whether we approve it or not tonight makes no difference because it already is approved.
One thing that confuses me, Imai, about your labels is Lincoln. We're removing trees in Lincoln?
No, Lincoln Road,
Lincoln
or
trees.
street, is it street or road?
Street.
Street.
Mary crosses over.
Oh, where it crosses over, okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it, thank you. All right. Thanks.
And then I'll pass out one more thing. This is from Lori at Tree Advisory. This is, as we did the site walk today, some of her suggested criteria for thinking about whether a tree should be removed or not. From Lori, Lori has to tag that Lori there.
Keep this. Thanks, John.
Great.
Any questions, Sue?
Yeah.
Okay. So, do we hear a motion on?
No, we haven't, but I would think we could do a motion to approve the removal of 51 trees. And then we do a vote on that motion, then the second motion is to deny the removal of the 16 trees.
Okay.
So, do it in two parts.
So I move we approve Eversource's removal of the agreed upon trees. I assume that they're all in here, correct?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Yeah. Unanimous.
Good.
Right, next motion?
So this is 15 trees. This one of these has 2 trees. One of these has 2 trees.
This one?
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
This is for documentation.
Okay. Is everyone looked at them? Sound like a
Steve, you all set?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So I would move that we keep the 16 trees cited.
Deny motion.
Okay, deny the motion to remove the 16 trees cited.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. Now we move to the 5 trees in question.
5 trees in question. Okay,
The
so
plan is to vote on these one by one?
plan is to,
Question and vote on them one by one.
yes,
Can you turn the
correct.
lights on maybe?
Oh, yeah.
See that?
Who's back there by the
Someone's
lights?
in the
Can
line.
someone
do
back
that.
there do it?
Set the mood for the.
The tree, other one. Thanks.
Actually, you should turn those off and the others on.
Yeah, that's good.
Opposite.
Perfect.
Perfect, good.
Who name was on each one of these questions?
Imai's gonna tell you.
Yeah. Okay, so first tree we looked at is, to review, is tree 2960, is at 400 Concord. I believe this tree had some damage down at the base, but as you can see,
Wait, where is this?
Do we have printouts, Imai?
Well,
yes.
How about number one here on 128
Oh,
Marion?
It's
You
the
want-
second one.
Okay.
Well, what order are you gonna do?
Yeah, how are we gonna?
I actually just put them in the order that I have them numbered, but we don't have.
Okay, all right, so,
Well, we'll find them.
Okay.
all right,
Go
Just
ahead.
on the second
400
page.
Concord.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I believe the case was this tree had some damage at the bottom of it, but it was a pretty large substantial oak that's, you know, part of a pretty complete street canopy there. What I'd like to do to go through each of these trees is kind of let Eversource state their case, let anyone from TAG state their case as to why they feel the tree remains, and then kind of wrap it up with our arborist kind of giving his overall impression of it. So, Chris, if you want to go over this one.
This tree was located actually across the street from the Eversource electric wires, but it was something I thought it was questionable enough in its condition that there is a significant risk that it can fall over at some point. I don't know if I really need to get too many details, partially because I don't remember them exactly, but I know that Clay's assessment was pretty in-depth, so I don't know if you wanted to reference what he had written about this
Well,
case specifically.
Clay will give his take on it when. Lori or Barbara, did you guys want to say anything from TAG perspective?
Why don't we let Clay speak first and then we can follow up?
So my biggest concern with this tree was that cavity on the back, and what I really wanted to do was use a sounding hammer to see how much decay I could detect inside. My concern was how far below that cavity the decay went and how far above. So I actually did detect much decay below, which was surprising. But I could tell that it went about 30 feet, at least 30 feet above that cavity. So my concern is the weak point there with it leaning towards the utilities on the other side. Weather could snap that tree heading that way.
So I don't understand it, you're saying that it had a cavity that was downward into the root system, correct?
It does not.
It doesn't, but it's a, you say it's a 30-foot column?
So for about,
Of hollowed
correct,
out?
at least 30 feet of a hollowed out column is there.
Okay, and the tree is approximately what height? Is it tall?
It has
Huge.
75 feet,
Okay,
or 75 feet tall.
right.
So Clay, you're suggesting it be removed, is that what I'm hearing?
I am, so I came up with a overall risk of moderate and the mitigation options of removal. If you were to prune the dead wood, the moderate risk would still remain, because the moderate risk is due to the overall failure of the tree.
Now, I think I remember this tree, one of the points on this is that it is a definite traffic calmer. And you say it's only a moderate risk,
Correct, that's
not
right.
a high risk.
Right.
Moderate is low on your scale
Yeah.
of risk assessment.
What are your levels of risk?
They're right in
It's on the
front.
memo.
Low,
Go ahead.
low, moderate, high, and extreme.
Okay, you
Moderate.
got 4 levels.
Right.
This is 2 of 4.
This is
Right.
two.
Okay, got it.
Consequences of failure are minor.
Oh, I see.
Likelihood of failure is very likely or likely, or consequences of failure are significant. Okay, I'm having trouble with this. Or severe and likelihood of failure is somewhat likely.
Right.
So, and we don't even have to worry about that's the matrix, that's what it could be. So what I came up with in order to get a moderate risk is that the likelihood of failure is possible, and the impact likelihood is high because it's leaning towards those lines. And if it was to fail and hit that target, the impact, the damage would be significant. So that led to a moderate overall
Significant in
risk.
terms of property damage or in terms of the transformer goes out and we have no power
Correct.
down there for a long time?
The amount of outages that would result.
Okay,
Is
so-
that the only damage that would cause us relating to the transformer? Or
And that's,
is there a house or anything that it would?
No, that's the target in question, so, choosing a single target per risk.
I mean, we would have to consider the fact that if it's falling on our wires, it's gonna be falling into the road as well, you know, so, granted, it's not an area that has experienced a ton of traffic, but there's quite a bit of risk there.
If the target in question was solely vehicular traffic or pedestrian traffic, it would be a low risk rate. But since this is regarding utilities, it's a moderate risk.
Yeah, so, and a lot of this depends on which way the wind is blowing, if we have a big blow, right? Because it would have to be blowing in one specific direction to fall exactly across the road.
Well, if the tree failed and snapped at that weak point, it would fall into
No matter what direction.
because of how much it's leaning now.
Okay.
Do we hear from Tag?
So, I was out of the country when we were doing this particular walkthrough, although I participated in the subsequent ones. Barbara, you were part of this particular walkthrough. Do you have any additional comments that you'd like to add? Because
No, I think I would pretty much concur with what was said about the risk, and I do agree with Susan that it's nice to have such a big diameter tree next to the road as a calming, and I would like it if we could keep like the lower part of the tree, so there's some structure next to the road, but I certainly agree that the upper part, if it's hollowed out that much, that's good to take it.
I agree with that, that if there's such a large amount that is hollowed out based on Clay's measurements, then it seems like enough of a risk that it should be taken down.
So even though it's a moderate risk, you feel,
Right, and please don't think moderate risk as being on the low spectrum, because in the grand scheme of things, say, in the inventory of the town, 90% of the trees are actually low risk. So even though it's only the second level up, there's still only a few trees that make it that far. And then even fewer that make it to high risk. In fact, as I think I mentioned, through our inventory, we found one extreme risk tree so far, so.
So how can you keep the base? I mean, that, right?
we talked about this on a couple of those trees on Concord Road.
I know
And on
you
Sudbury,
suggested leaving, you know,
Yeah.
a somewhat substantial snag, like a 10-15 foot snag, which, you know, as long as it's not an issue to fall on our wires, it's fine with me,
Okay.
but, you know, it's not something I would really recommend.
Well, it's not necessarily
Yeah.
aesthetic,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah, I saw it was kind
but
of
it,
decapitation.
except that they do provide some habitat, snags, and I know that everybody was concerned that, you know, the commuters through town would think it was terrible. But
I think what was there?
snags along the roadside,
Oh.
but they do,
Because you drive faster, or slower because of, I mean.
no, because of aesthetics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And
that was
the other
good.
thing you need to consider is if you're leaving a snag there, it's gonna be quite a bit longer before it does fall over, but eventually that's gonna need to be removed as well.
But that one would cause, when that needs to go down, it's a long way in the future. I mean, we've got some snags around that could have been there for
But
30 years.
it's also assuming that somebody's paying attention to it.
Yeah, well, if it's right on the roadside,
Right.
Yeah.
so, I mean,
So I don't hear a strong argument for keeping it. Does anybody want to?
a snag is a tall, anywhere from 10 to 20 foot decapitation, but you leave it for nesting and,
Sue, I don't hear a strong argument for keeping it unless you
Yeah.
hear from you. Steve?
no,
Okay. Are we tending towards removing it?
I guess so.
Okay. Do I
Okay.
hear a motion?
But in the partial sense, what about doing the
The
snag?
snag?
Do you wanna
Yeah.
do snag?
You want to try a snag? Snag it?
Snag it.
I would
Well, again,
snag it.
that's your decision.
Who
Any,
would?
any thoughts from the audience on snags or removing it or not?
I have a lot of snags at my house, but they're not next to the road, so.
And the problem with having them next to the road is they're unsightly, you mean?
No, I don't care that they look unsightly, the woodpeckers like them, but, it's just next to the road. When they eventually die, they're gonna fall on the road and then.
But it
That's
won't be as
easier.
catastrophic
Yeah.
a
Right, it'll
failure.
just be
It'll be
decent
low enough
bark.
to hit the wires, is that right?
Being full.
By that time,
So
it'll be
we'll cut below the
sawdust.
wire.
Yeah.
So is there an argument against a snag?
But I mean, these are scenic roads and it's not very scenic.
It's not very scenic to have a snag, is that true?
I
From the
agree.
That's,
tag,
I just-
tag belief?
that's subjective, yeah.
In the middle of the
Very-
forest. That's you guys from the city.
I think
like everything pruned up here.
Tag, what's Tag's opinion on a snag?
I think it makes a statement that we're pro wood wildlife, because that's what the snags benefit,
snags
right?
encourage wildlife.
So it's the.
I'll take Tag's recommendation on the snag if you guys will.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
No way.
All right, so do we have a motion there?
I move that we remove the top of the tree and leave it in the snag condition.
All in favor?
I,
Aye. Unanimous. Move on.
Okay.
There you go.
This was the first tree, I believe, that we said needed to be looked at. And Clay, I believe when you looked at this tree, you saw a wound on the bottom, unless I'm thinking of a different tree, and you wanted to take a further look at this one.
Yeah,
This is 2019-81.
third,
So this is just
Concord
past
near
where
Lots.
Concord goes over the rail trail.
right, okay.
Oh,
Oh,
Wait,
yeah.
is it the third one?
I know.
They're both.
Not that one.
I know someone.
This one.
Isn't there Terry?
Oh, because he's
No.
not in closer.
Is
Like
it?
he's closer.
Oh, no,
That's
it's Concord, sorry.
Relax.
I
the
got
same
it.
up there. I mean, it's
You're
behind the
wrong.
guardrail.
Yeah, I meant
If you
the
look, I mean,
street, same town.
place.
I didn't see this.
Oh,
Who
Laxville.
actually went and saw this one, aside from?
Imai, would you mind pointing out on the picture which the tree is? Is there like
It's this
three-
one right here.
Where the
Oh, that
people are
one.
standing.
Yeah,
People are about to get hit by a falling tree.
yeah. Where you and Leslie are.
Could be different.
Okay, Chris, why don't you make your argument there?
This tree, the notes I have for this one, I just put that it has odd growth pattern, probably because we pruned it to grow around the wires when it was quite a bit younger tree. There was some rot in the trunk, and then I wrote down there was an active crack at the base. What I meant by that is, you know, I did see a fissure at the base that had some sap leaking out of it, so that's why I called it an active crack. So I think there's risk here. I didn't think this was the worst tree we looked at by any means, but I think it was bad enough to ask for permission to cut it down.
Is there growth on it at the top? I can't quite see.
Yeah, the tree.
Full on top?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The canopy was completely healthy.
Okay,
It was just a structural issue.
so I don't hear a full-throated argument to remove it.
Well, I think then Clay did the
Okay,
assessment.
Clay, go ahead, Clay.
so yes, the tree was healthy, and when that one lead was removed, it was removed, pruned so that one of the smaller branches would become the dominant lead, and that did happen. That smaller branch did take over as the dominant lead. However, the wound didn't heal, so it caused a lot of decay. Sounding it did reveal a column of decay leading from that removed leader all the way down to the base. That crack didn't seem too bad. I think I didn't see much decay or any hollowness around that crack. The thing about this tree though is the way that it's standing is it could fall anywhere. It has just as much of likelihood as falling back to the woods where there's nothing, or either side where there's nothing, or towards the road. So if it did fall towards the road, and there is a possibility that it would, then it would cause significant damage. But based on the track assessment, it is a low risk tree because there's a possible likelihood that it would fail. However, there is a medium likelihood that it would strike the target, and if it did, it would be significant. That comes out to a low risk tree.
Okay, Tag's thoughts on the tree?
Barbara, you saw that tree.
I thought because it still had canopy on the top that
Yeah,
it was worth saving.
okay. Sue, do you have leanings on that? No pun intended.
No, it's not.
I have an anecdote story. I have a very large white pine that was struck by lightning about 15 years ago, and one half of it is completely blackened and rotted. The other half, right there in front of you, is healthy as can be. I'm amazed that it's able to wall off its rotten side and thrive. So my leaning would,
Keeping it?
so my leaning would
I
be
got
with
lost
Barbara,
now,
that, and especially since you say this is low risk.
Low risk to me, that means.
Steve,
Yeah.
you okay with keeping it?
Yep.
Okay, can I hear a motion? Any discussion from the audience here? Okay,
I hope that we save that tree.
Deny.
Did request to be moved.
okay. All, second.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
All unanimous?
Okay, this one is just down the way from that first tree. Another one we felt needed discussion. Another, tall, significant tree, but kind of bare as it goes up.
Oh, another.
Benny, this is the one that was in contact with the conductor.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, you're on.
So again, this tree, for all intents and purposes, was healthy as well. And the reason why I'd asked to take this out is because it was growing very close to the side of the road, and there's a wound actually in the trunk of the tree where our wires had been in contact with the tree for quite a number of years, which I think this, they pulled the wires away from the trunk itself, but the wound is still there, and that tree is spindly enough, whereas in windy conditions, it's gonna be rocking back and forth and be back in contact with the wires. Also, OSHA regulations say that, you know, even a qualified line worker is not supposed to get within, 2.5 feet of electrified conductors. And the trunk of that tree is probably, 6 inches or so away from the conductors.
Insulation won't help anything.
Now, insulation isn't really something we have. We have wire guards at home, but the intent of the wire guard is really to protect the wire itself, not really insulate against the tree.
Okay, right?
Yes, there's
It's
not
not an
much,
issue of health here, I guess.
there's not, this tree is healthy. If it was in a different location, there'd probably be absolutely no question.
This is a worker safety issue, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I
Definitely
mean, there's
not
certainly
exactly
risk
aligned
from,
with that.
in a storm that it's gonna be rocking back and forth, that it could,
Right.
cause the lines to come down or,
Understand.
start a fire, but.
Want to hear from Tag on that?
Barbara?
Yeah, I think I agreed at the time, I believe that this tree should be removed
Okay, got it.
because of the line issue.
It's hard to argue
It's
against
hard to
safety.
argue.
Yeah.
Plus, it
I like
is,
other
it
human
is embedded with a lot of other white pines around, so it
Yeah.
isn't like we're removing this monumental tree and feeling too bad about it, and I agree when we, that it should go.
Okay, right, so.
Okay.
I move that we allow this one. Across from Laxfield Street, tree number 2019-83, be removed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Move on.
Okay, this tree actually is one that we looked at when we did the Marion
Now we're getting
sidewalk.
close to home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is one, when you and I, Tony, went on the sidewalk with Steve, we recommended removing the sidewalk to the inside of this tree to save this tree.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
How dare they?
Yeah, so,
You're-
but when looked at it, you and me, I guess, or at least me, not looking at it with arborist eyes, didn't look at it for any structural defects. I
Oh,
think
okay, got it.
both Chris and Clay had concerns about some of the structure of this tree, so we asked Clay to write it up
Make
more.
the-
What's that?
Removing it would make the sidewalk easier too.
It would make the sidewalk easier, that's true.
Okay, Chris.
My point on this one is this tree is in pretty significant decline. I was somewhat surprised to see you guys wanted to save it for the sidewalk, just because in my eyes it was pretty poor condition. As far as
Talking
being,
down to us now? You
We know nothing about trees.
I guess from a protecting utilities perspective, we decided that we could take the one dead leader off and the rest of the tree would really not be a threat. But again, you're gonna end up having to
Okay.
deal with what I think is gonna be a dead tree.
Okay, then we should hear from Clay, right?
Yeah.
So I have an overall risk of high for this tree,
Oh,
and that's based on that dead leader hanging over the lines. It's almost completely dead, and there's a column of decay.
and you can't remove the leader and.
No, you could, and actually, that's one of the mitigation options, is if that leader
That would
was
change the risk from high to what?
actually low.
To low,
Be-
oh, in
because
one full
the-
swoop, one cut.
Exactly, because that, it almost completely eliminates the target. The remaining tree, although still in very poor condition and with a good likelihood of failing, would fall into the woods.
Is
And
this
there'd be
as
no
in
target.
poor condition as any of the trees we've looked at so far?
It's in serious decline and there's a lot of decay.
Okay,
But again, removing a target, you remove the risk, so.
right, understood.
Yeah.
Tag?
I was in favor of pruning the dead branch out.
Gotcha.
I'd throw one concern in there too, is that the sidewalks are gonna go in there.
Oh, it'll be damaging the roof.
So yeah, it probably won't help it by any means, but also it's gonna put a target on the other side.
Right. You're
So,
going to treat it.
eventually, right?
Yeah. And not
Poor
only
tree's on
that,
its deathbed.
it's on its deathbed already, and
Yeah.
we leave it, and they would put the sidewalk through, and it's dead in a year or two
Yeah,
after.
but
Then it
not
has-
dead yet.
Yeah. Just
Go
cut
ahead.
that. Then it'll have to be removed, it will be unsightly in the sidewalk, which we will have spent close to $1 million
Are you
on.
leaning that way?
So I'm leaning to, let's allow this one.
They removed entirely?
Yeah.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion?
I move we allow this tree to be removed entirely.
Second, anybody?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay, is this the last one,
Is
Iman?
that it?
This is the last one, okay, and so this one may be our most contentious tree, because this one has some damage on
Say
it
the toughest
from
one
things hitting it, yeah, we have to get warmed up, right, so.
Yeah.
But it is in a very significant spot on Merriam Street, and is a big canopy tree that is, it's not like the other ones embedded amongst a forest, it is a prominent tree right
Where is
out
it
there.
on Merriam?
It is, out 306, so it's after you cross over the
Cherry
tracks, yeah.
Oh, over the track.
Yeah.
Oh,
Will
I
it be
see.
North, if you're going north.
Yeah, okay, got it. Near 117.
Will it be affected by the new sidewalk?
No, this already has sidewalk there, so this is not affected by.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's a tree all by
This one I recall Kristen was very in favor of saving.
itself. Okay.
This
Chris,
is the one that you said the school bus hit.
Yeah, the school bus hit this tree.
So this one, the tree is still alive, but in significant decline. There's actually fungus growing all around the base of the tree. Might not necessarily be decay fungi, but still, it's not a good sign that the tree's in good health. The sidewalk is actually paved up to the base of the tree itself, so there's really no room for that tree to be growing anymore. Considering its condition, I don't think it's going to be growing at all.
Hmm.
I guess Clay would probably give a little
Okay,
more
Clay.
in-depth description of it than I would.
So at first look, this tree is significantly declining, and after my assessment, there were some things that I found that surprisingly weren't as bad as I first thought. When I sounded the tree, there wasn't as much decay as I thought. I actually think some of that fungus might be saprophytic, meaning it's feeding on already dead wood. However, my big concern is its growth space and the compaction that's over it. I don't know
You mean
if
the sidewalk or the other
the
trees?
sidewalk that's over, I don't know if they have this, show this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have your
Yeah.
report.
Okay, great.
So it's the road right
It's growing out of
alongside.
the sidewalk.
Right,
for
so
people,
it's
yeah.
completely covered by sidewalk, and a tree this size.
But I walked through Cambridge and there's a lot of trees, you know, like.
Right, right. It's a tree this size and in this state of decline is likely not to be able to come back from some of it. So this tree will continue to decline, and right now I have it as a high-risk tree because of the dead branches that continue to fall, that are hanging, there's large dead branches that are
Can you
hanging
cut
over
down?
the line. You could
Get pruned,
prune those, and that would
reduce the risk.
possibly reduce the risk for a time.
From what to what? High to,
It would
He wrote moderate.
maybe
Will be
become
reduced to
it would
moderate.
become a moderate risk tree
okay.
for a time until the rest of the tree continues to die, and then
Okay, you want
have
to
to
hear from
revisit
Tag?
that.
I missed the viewing of this particular
Okay.
tree.
Kristen went with, say that she was in favor of saving, it. She went there with Tag.
Yeah.
I thought we had eventually changed our mind at one point, but
Which way?
I know she was that was a tree that she was very adamant about
Adamant to
saving.
keep.
But after looking at it, I know that she was, I thought, leading in
That's
that
hearsay.
direction. Yeah.
It's inadmissible. Strike that.
It is interesting that Cambridge is able to, but they actually have custom forms that they
Yeah.
do around their trees, you know, it's like
They allow some.
you go in there and it's amazing, you know, it's like
I mean,
all
they
the
just don't
concrete
buy
has been.
asphalt straight up.
Right, they don't just do that.
Can
Right.
we remove some of
I was
that
gonna say,
asphalt
is there
around
any,
the
would
tree?
that help, do you think? Like freeing it up a little bit so that it's, I mean, it looks, you know how trees have that like
Flare.
flare?
Flare,
It looks
yeah,
like
that's
they've
true. There really
had
isn't much of a
it
flare
right up
here.
above it.
It's possible it could help. That's a lot of effort and money.
For a healthy
spent
tree, it
for
would
a
be worth
tree
the
that
effort. For an
may
unhealthy
not
tree, it's not
react
worth
to
it.
it at all.
Mm.
How did that sidewalk get so close to that tree?
That's what we were just wondering.
Yeah,
Because it got paved right up there.
what happened to that tulip?
Not our
It's a
department.
good lesson for the future.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's, I
Anybody
can
have
understand being upset about it because this is, like she said, this is a big signature tree.
Yeah,
Big
it's by
impact
itself.
on a scenic road,
Yeah.
but it's, when it's dead.
But I think the tree has survived in spite of the way it's been treated by the town,
Yeah.
and it's still alive now. I would suggest that we trim it
And
and
give it another
keep it.
visit.
And then you come back in 4 years, if it's dead then, we'll take it
Was
down.
it 4 years or 3 years?
4 years.
What's the cycle?
Well,
Cycle?
we don't necessarily have a cycle for tree removals, you know,
Right.
this is
But
something
that's
that
your
we,
assessment
we wanna put an
cycle,
eye
right?
on, we
Yeah.
wanna keep an eye
Should we
on.
give it a life for 4 more years?
If that's what you guys want.
What-
Prune the dead
But
wood
there's
out.
certainly no
Trim-
guarantee,
trim the
if
dead
we're,
wood.
if we're trimming the dangerous
Okay.
part that's gonna affect the wires, you know, then I really have no interest in taking it down in 4
Right, I
years.
gotcha.
Right, right. I think we should
Alicia is
tend
offering
to-
an opinion. Do people like that?
Yeah, I would love it if there'd be something else more that could be done for it,
Yeah,
you know, like
remove some of the
take some,
asphalt.
just the compaction all around it and.
Could you do that? You're not allowed to do
That's
that.
not, that's not his
No.
job.
Yeah.
I mean, just could you do it though?
As a favor.
I could borrow a jackhammer.
I mean, you do other things.
Impervious.
I know that.
Yeah, or just something, I mean, that's like ridiculous treatment on that. But I guess that would be up to us to contact DPW and see
Yeah,
them
we have
to.
to.
So Imai, can you just write that note down?
Yeah, we can look at what
Oh,
mitigation.
Tag has a comment?
And I would just say that I would be in favor of keeping it, but pruning it,
Yeah.
and then
Right.
monitoring it. And
Exactly,
then if
perfect.
cabling or some other
Perfect.
step is appropriate, we could take it. Because it does seem to be an important tree and a heritage tree.
I think so, yeah.
So
Do I hear a motion?
That was my motion.
Okay. Is that okay?
Keep and trim?
Prune, yeah, prune,
Okay. And trim
mitigate
the.
and
Deny
monitor.
removal.
Right,
Okay.
Mitigate and
Prune.
prune.
And what she said, if possible.
yes.
That's our recommendation, I know. That's-
Prune,
Okay.
mitigate the damage from the sidewalk and monitor its future. That was my motion.
Very lovely.
Second.
Yes, on second,
Okay,
you did.
all approved?
Aye.
All right.
So,
Unanimous. Yes,
how is the sidewalk mitigation, how does that work?
that's how he's gonna come back.
We-
He's gonna follow up.
This is something we're gonna have to investigate and talk about with DPW. We don't have a method for this yet.
Which
I
we
think
think
if I
is a
could throw
good
my
thing to
2
have.
cents in, I don't think doing anything with that sidewalk's gonna help that tree at this point.
You just
I think
leave it
it's too
as it
far, I
is.
think it's just too far
Or just
along.
create a little space.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know.
not gonna hurt you.
Hey, they're gonna be there doing sidewalks anyway
Yeah,
soon,
exactly.
so
Okay,
maybe that
yeah.
something can be done.
Let's find out.
We done with the trees?
Yes.
Okay.
That is it. We are done with the trees.
And
We're on schedule. We're
That was-
slightly ahead of schedule.
That was-
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ted,
Chris,
for
I
your.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you guys. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you. Mentor, I know there's a lot of time in that, I really appreciate it, or we really appreciate it, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you,
Clerk.
thanks so much.
Okay. 60 Old Road, scenic road site plan approval. For a new home.
Here you go, Eric. You can have the,
Control it?
you can have the controls.
Right here.
I gotta take this.
Left, right button goes forward and then top is the laser.
Okay, I just want to make some preliminary remarks just to set the stage a teeny bit here. This is Steve, this is a little bit of a tricky application. Not sure you're familiar with it. It's tricky in that there's a ZBA order in effect for the property. You familiar with that? Okay, so you know about it. I don't have to go over it all again. Okay, great. Okay, so the ZBA order from years ago, it turns out the property was pretty much clear cut. And the ZBA came back and said, a couple things. You need to reestablish the grade, number one. And number two, you need to reforest 30 feet, the 30-foot buffer around it. And so that's an order that hasn't been satisfied yet. But yeah, now the applicant has come to us and said, so it turns out we went to the ZBA and we said, we'd like to get guidance from you because we don't want to ping pong back and forth. They didn't give us official guidance, but John Fields joined us in a meeting and he said, regarding regrading, as long as it's reasonable grading to establish a home, that's okay. And he didn't give us strong counsel on the order on the 30-foot buffer. Okay, so we took our time with the applicant and with our consultant and said, let's take another look at this plan to see if the 30-foot buffer order is fulfilled in the plans that they gave us, right? Is that fair? And I personally was satisfied enough that there was a chance that they would be fulfilled, that we could go ahead and hear this. It would be a good use of everybody's time. And then the issue wouldn't ping back and forth between us and the ZBA. Okay, so what I'd like to do is have Imai read the original order, just to make sure Steve and the rest of the members are familiar with
So
that.
I'm just reading this last section here that talks about this. Submit a landscape plan prepared by a professional landscape designer or professional landscape architect by September 1st, 2000, long past, for planning board approval. This plan shall include replanting of an evergreen screen of at least 30 feet in width using trees of at least 12 feet in height around the perimeter of the lot so as to provide an effective buffer between the lot and the abutting properties and to screen the view into the lot from hilltop and old roads, regarding the property to its original condition as existed prior to construction of the driveway in June of 1999, removal of the shed, restoration of disturbance along the easement along 45 Pigeon Hill by regrading the property to its original state, prior to construction of the driveway, and to replant this easement with a mixture of evergreen and deciduous trees along the length of the easement, provided, however, since this easement is over property owned by residents of 45 Pigeon Hill Road, and such owners may specifically waive or condition this regrading or replanting to their satisfaction, and E, replanting of trees, deciduous or evergreen, in other areas of the lots that are not in the location of the existing septic system over any proposed heights, but only if such house site shall be properly determined in the decision by the planning board pursuant to site plan approval.
Great, can you now follow up with Winifred's email of the
Yep.
last couple of weeks?
So,
We went to Winifred and we said, can you give us more strict guidance on how we should handle this application? And
Yeah,
here was
so-
her answer.
So, just her piece of it, as I read the ZBA's 2000 decision, the precise implementation details set forth by the ZBA can be modified by the planning board as needed to coordinate with its site plan approval for the site. I think the next step is for the planning board to develop an appropriate site plan. If the planning board site plan differs from the ZBA's specifications, it'd be helpful for the planning board to explain why they are making the departure.
Okay. Good. So, any questions on that, Steve, or other members? Great. Okay, let's proceed.
Good evening, everyone.
Hearing.
My name is Eric Goldberg. I'm from Wilson's, Cosentino, and Nobbins, Jonathan White's office. I'm here representing whoever's, Elaine and Madeline, who are the folks petitioning to redevelop this property. Our development team is Eric Joseph from Paul Finger Associates, site engineer. Jay Thrasher from Rogill Water Limited, who dealt with the stormwater management and Title V issues. And our architect is David Michael Johnson. They are all here. Eric Joseph is going to walk you all through the project and the various components of the project. I'm happy to address some other issues as they come up if the board would like me to do so. What I would like to do very, very briefly is just give a little introduction about the Webbers so you folks have an understanding as to who is before you asking for your approval. And I think it's important because it gives some context to what it is they're trying to do and why they're trying to do it on a site that presents some complicating factors more so than some other sites. So very, very briefly, the Webbers are from France originally. They moved to the United States in 2010. And they moved to this area for work, and they came to the Weston area in part for daycare in the schools for the children. They have two young children. One is 12 in middle school, and the other child is a bit younger. And they fell in love with the Old Road neighborhood, and they built a house on Old Road in 2012. And they lived there for a number of years, and their family has grown. They need a little bit more room. Oftentimes their parents will come and visit them in the United States, need some space to stay for an extended period. And so they needed something a bit bigger than the house that they built. But they loved this neighborhood. They loved it to such an extent that although they sold the house that they built for themselves in 2012, they did it so they could come back into this neighborhood and develop this lot into something that they can be proud of, and that the town can be proud of, and that the folks who are encircling this lot can be proud of as well. The Webbers want to be good neighbors. I think you will hopefully get that feeling from the extent that they've worked with the development team, with the guidance of the town planner and other folks, to try to present a project to this board that will not only develop a really beautiful property for themselves and for their neighbors, but is doing so in a way that is speaking to the issues that have enveloped this lot for so many years, in a way that is, I think, and our team thinks, and hopefully you all will think, is a reasonable approach to address the issues that were created many, many years ago. But in circumstances where the lot has changed over literally 2 decades. The lot that is out there today is not the lot that existed back in 2000. And so hopefully you will get that sense that they really have come forward to do something that this board can feel good about, and also support in a way back to the zoning board that whatever departure that you all are willing to make from the original order back in 2000, that you are supportive of the ZBA accepting the changes that you hopefully will approve. And so with that, I will
You're about to say?
hand it off to Eric.
Thank you.
Eric Joseph, Paulfinger Associates. If it's okay with the chair, I just wanted to give a brief description of the property, the existing
Can we
conditions.
make that bigger by any means, or?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay, you can't zoom into parts of it?
Oh, definitely.
Let's, well,
We need to see all of Weston?
No, you don't need to see it all, Weston. I just wanted to give context. I know we all had a little trouble finding the
Oh,
site. and
I
it's a
see,
sidewalk.
But just, hold on,
Yeah.
1 second.
Oh,
Better?
I didn't mean that so much, I just meant zoom in, yeah.
Okay.
So just brief context, the site's located just north of the center of town, right near the rail trail area.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry.
That's really
yeah.
Just trying to be brief. I know you're short on time. Site is located.
Oh, we like the context, yeah.
Yep.
Talk about the houses real quick.
Sure. Certainly.
Emphasize the size as you go around.
Sure, certainly. So what we're looking at is a combination of actually homes that range from 2,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms, all the way up to actually 10,000 square feet with 6 bedrooms and a carriage house. The average mean here is about 4,700 square feet and 4 bedrooms.
Okay.
We're looking at, a 5 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 4 bedroom, then going around we have 2 bedroom here, but then 6, and then 4. So property's actually bounded on 2 sides. We have Old Road over here, which is actually a private road, and then Hilltop here, which is actually public and scenic. That's the reason, or one of the reasons why we're here. They actually do have an access easement to Pigeon Hill Road, and just as a side note, Weber's were actually considering can we get off at Pigeon Hill or Hilltop at one point in time, just because it's paved, it's more secure, but the reason, for reasons of site disturbance, we actually decided to come off of Old Road over in this area here. So this is just a current aerial, what the site looks like now. This is actually Old Road coming down here. This is Hilltop Road. Pigeon Hill is off to here. And this is the access easement. The property is actually this area right along here. There is an existing septic system tank here with the fields here, as well as an existing shed and gravel drive coming off here. Just to give some context in terms of what the property looks like now, as Eric mentioned, the site has actually grown in. We were actually looking at a site that's actually about 70% moderately wooded, with 30% open meadows. You're talking about over 133 trees that are 6-inch to 32-inch in caliber. So we are talking about, just going back to this area, around a small opening in this area here. To get to the chair's point in terms of the buffer, which I think you wanted to address first. So if I could just go right to, so first I just want to thank the Imai and Kim. We had a number of meetings, kind of going back and forth, in terms of how to come up with a buffer plan that actually respect and honor the 30-foot buffer area. Since actually our last sidewalk, we actually increased the reforestation areas even some more. So what we're looking at actually is, we're looking at coming in off Old Road. This here is all existing. This dark red line actually represents the 30-foot buffer. So you can see we have more than enough mature vegetation along here. We've actually bumped out this reforestation area here. We bumped it out over in this area here. And then we actually reforested all this, and we added like another half a dozen evergreen trees, mature trees here. So at the end of the day, you're actually looking at a site where only 30% of the site is actually being used. So the other 2/3 of the site is actually going to be either undeveloped, and these reforestation areas here, we're talking somewhere in the range around 9,000 square feet. That actually represents 10% of the lot that we're actually trying to reforest with some saplings. So I think between maintaining the 30-foot buffer, reinforcing this with some mature vegetation, the reforestation here, and minimizing the amount of site disturbance, I think that honors the 30-foot buffer, and this was done over a number of meetings with Kim as well as with mine.
Can you share some numbers on the trees, the number of trees you're putting in?
Sure, we are putting in 13 trees, 10 to 12 foot tall. Putting in 3 spruces here, just because we actually have dense shade in this area. We have 5 pines in this area here, again 10 to 12 feet tall. We have 2 Serbian spruces, again 10 to 12 feet tall. And then over in this corner here, we actually have 3 more white spruces. Again, we're looking at possible shades since the sun is pointing that way. So in total, 13 evergreen trees, but in terms of the number of saplings, that's what we actually see here. We're putting in 52 saplings. So at the end of the day, you're actually putting in a combination of 65 trees, saplings as well as mature trees.
So all those other circles are existing trees?
Oh, yes, that is correct.
So the portion of the site that was cleared is basically the cleared portion you see now?
Correct.
Around the house?
Correct. And actually, we only have to take down, and I'll get more into this when we get to the next phase, but we only have to remove 3 trees in order to construct this.
Ima, there was a side that you were concerned about that wasn't reforested. Which
Yeah,
side was
correct.
that?
The major one was up there, just where Eric is pointing. And
pointing
so
right
they've added in more screening in there and brought in some of the developed area so it gets out of there.
Exactly. We were looking at, do we reforest this? Because I think that was one of the suggestions you might have. But if you remember from the site walk, when you come up the gravel drive, it peeled in actually into an area that was already had saplings. So what we did was we actually pulled the limited disturbance from down here all the way right up tight to the driveway.
Because this is such a central issue, I just want to stop for a second and see if we have any questions from the audience. Any neighbors have questions about the reforestation?
Could you just explain again the reforestation near our house, which is on 29 Hilltop Road? I'm a little unclear on just what, I guess I'm not clear on what the red dotted line is.
Certainly.
If that red line is 30 feet wide?
It is. This is actually 30-foot offset from the property line.
Yeah.
And then this area here is about a 3,200 square foot area that we're looking at putting in 28 saplings in this area. And essentially, that's a no-touch, let it preserve, let it reforest.
So,
Yes.
in terms of the saplings, what are you
Could you identify
planting?
yourselves? I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, can you address?
Jerry and Michael Cooper, we live at 29 Hilltop Road.
Thanks.
We're at the top of the property.
Why don't you point where she
Right
lives?
there, right there.
And this house sits down quite a distance. So, and our house has 3 levels above ground. And the clear cutting that occurred 20 years ago removed any of the evergreens that were there. So a lot of what's left are deciduous trees, which fill in beautifully this time of year. But to the extent they're removed to allow for the growth that needs to occur, we're gonna lose a lot of screening. So we just are trying to understand what the plan is and how much screening will exist, because we don't wanna wait 20 more years to see things grow in and, you know, provide some screening. We can't expect absolute screening, but we like some. So knowing what's being planted, what's evergreen, what's not is important.
Eric, why don't you address their concern?
Certainly. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Cooper, but this is actually standing in the field, and actually the house in question, your house, I believe, is actually in this area here. In terms of a direct answer in terms of what the screening is going to look like, so this here is sapling trees, but we do have 3 evergreen trees that are going up in this corner, which, and I know we've done this in the past, at the time these get planted, we could coordinate with you in terms of, okay, do you want these located further? What is the best view that you would like blocked? We can work with you and put that, I believe in the past, we put that as a special condition.
And how high are these 3 trees?
These trees here are 10 to 12 feet tall. They're spruces, so at the time they're being planted, they're going to be somewhere in the range, I want to say, of about maybe 8 feet wide. But they do grow up to actually about, somewhere between 15 to 20 feet wide. The spruces grow, I want to say, somewhere in the range of about 2 feet per year.
The spruces lose their bottom leaf?
That's a great question. Actually, no, the pines typically do. It's the spruces don't. That's one of the reasons why we actually like to go with the spruces.
And why just 3 in that corner? Is there a reason for it?
Because it's heavily wooded
Nope.
already.
This area is heavily wooded, so that's why we're looking at 3 in this particular area.
Well, heavily wooded with deciduous
It's,
trees, and many of them
Sure.
are really scruffy.
Yep,
There's a lot of scruffy growth that's come up over the past 20 years.
understand.
I'd like to make a comment here, if I could, regarding Mrs. Cooper's concerns.
If you could just identify yourself.
Yes, I am the, representing the trustee of the First Hilltop Realty Trust, on both 45 and 47 Hilltop Road. This is a letter for Mrs. Cooper, one of about 8, asking me to cut down trees. Mrs. Cooper is a .40 of an acre. Depending on our 2¼ acre lot to screen her, we have planted trees there. I don't think she's ever planted a tree, and I think that request should be tempered.
I don't want to get into discussing past history because it's not productive, and I know you have a time limit. But I think the comments that were just made are not helpful to the discussion. The exchange of letters were about trees that were dead and hanging over our property, that were on our neighbor's property, and we're asking for permission to take them down at our expense so they wouldn't fall on our house.
Are there any other neighbors with concerns about the rebuffering issue?
No.
Great. So Kim, can I just call on you? Oh, yes.
Yeah, I would support the Coopers in their desire for a little privacy.
Yeah.
3 trees, the 12 feet is a good sized tree, but 3 doesn't seem adequate.
And you are?
I'm sorry, I'm Mike Carter, and this is my wife Louise.
Okay.
21 Hilltop Road.
I just have a question, maybe because I don't know all of the history there, but
Yeah.
it sounds as if there's an order to replant something that was significantly altered.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back to that, yeah.
Well, I just would like to know how the person that, I know the Webbers are trying to buy the property, and I think that's wonderful. And I think putting up a house there is wonderful. I'm trying to understand just how they're not being kept to the original requirement.
But they are being kept to the original requirements, that's what we're saying.
The owner or the future buyer?
This permit, we're focused on the permit.
The property has to be.
Yeah, so right now we're focused on this permit. And we're saying, we're aware that we have to have a permit that's consistent with the original ZBA order. Said to start off the meeting, or the hearing. Kim, so let me just go to Kim for just a second. So Kim, do you have a sense on what was there that needed to be rebuffered? And is this corner rebuffered like it was and is consistent with the ZBA order?
So I didn't see the property before it was clear cut. I
Yeah.
haven't been in Weston for
Right.
20 years.
Hard to
but,
imagine it, too.
Right, but we did look at the property probably 8 or 9 years ago,
Yeah.
when it was a decade out from being clear cut. And quite a bit of growth has occurred here in the last 2 decades. And being out at the site a couple weeks ago versus when I was there about 8 or 9 years ago, it's very dense. I mean, there is a lot of deciduous trees there, but it's clear that the forest is trying to come back in. When I was looking through the previous decision, they're looking for a buffer of 30 feet around the perimeter, not to reforest the entire portion of the center that was clear cut.
Yeah, exactly.
So, in my opinion, looking at this, that 30 feet has absolutely been maintained. The rebuffering has occurred within the 30-foot perimeter.
I think that the individual suggestions about where evergreen trees are gonna be moved should be part of this site plan review.
Got it.
And not this bit, which is a separate issue, which is the 30-foot buffer.
Understood.
Which I believe with this plan is being met.
Can I just take a moment and talk about that corner, because that seems to be the only controversial corner, is that fair? What is your opinion? Is there enough rebuffering there to adequately fulfill our obligation and the ZBA's original order?
I think that the 30 feet, the 30-foot buffer is
Within the 30
absolutely-
feet.
Yes, is absolutely being met. Specific house-to-house sort of
Right.
buffering, I think
Yeah.
we can revisit again during the
Okay.
site plan review, but, you know, if this lot were released, if this, you know, if this were.
Okay, so you're saying it's one
Yeah.
thing to fulfill the ZBA, or it's another thing to say, hey, wait a minute, you've got buffering that needs to be taken into account.
Right, because we're
regardless.
not specifically looking
Right.
at the house tonight, we're looking at the lot as it stands today, correct?
Yes, no, we're looking at the house tonight, we plan to look at the house.
Are you gonna do the site plan?
Yes,
review?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Mr. Chairman, may I make one
So,
comment?
look, I'm just thinking out loud here. So maybe we talk a little bit later about adding more trees or bigger trees to that corner. Is that
Or
fair?
moving some things
Moving
around
things
to,
around.
to create the buffer
Okay,
from a
that's fair.
specific abutter to specific.
So that'll be discussed a little bit later in tonight, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we tend to be focused on just the ZBA orders.
May I make one?
We have one more audience question.
Terry Eastman, 50 Pigeon Hill Road. I've lived in the neighborhood for 30 years, and I was there when the lot was clear cut. I remember very clearly how it was clear cut, and I walk my dog by down that road every day. And I noticed, I defer to Kim, who's the expert. It doesn't look to me like it's, I mean, I see that it's growing back, but they're very young saplings, they're very small, and it looks pretty, I agree with the copers, it looks very scruffy.
So you remember, she's focused on the perimeter. She's not saying the
Well,
lot
this
is as it
the perimeter
was.
that I'm talking about.
She's just talking about the perimeter. Yeah, okay,
I am
okay,
talking
gotcha.
about the perimeter.
Okay, got it.
All along the street.
Okay,
So, in my opinion, it still needs some work.
okay,
Can I give you a little more recent history here?
yeah, okay.
The request from neighbors that the lot be cleared. Town council sent me a letter saying, please clear the lot. We have that letter, and we did do clearing. We had members of, I can't remember what board come down, it may have been the CBA, standing there watching. But, yeah, so you have half the people clear it, half the people plant it. We
Yeah.
went in with the driveway required, which is 47 Hilltop Road is the actual address. And this is from the variance decision special permit decision of the town of Weston Board of Appeals rendered December 16, 1981. And it says, any access driveway to Lot 2 that's separated from Lot 1 containing the present house and barn shall be located no closer than 10 feet from the easterly property line. That's 47 Hilltop Road, that's where we put in the driveway, and that's how we built the septic system, which is rather large.
Right, got it. And council, let's finish up this discussion for now with your thoughts.
Yes, no, I appreciate that. I just wanted to make one point that helpful to the board, and I think maybe helpful to the folks who are here tonight. Town planner alluded to the email from the zoning board member who suggested
Chair.
that, right. But it's important to note that the language that was reflected in the ZBA chair's email is language directly from the ZBA's decision. And the decision by its own terms says that the planning board may, in its discretion, modify or further condition the above.
But we have to
specification. So in terms of this board's obligation to comply in full measure with the ZBA's order from 2001, I simply
I think we're close, so I think we have one corner we have to deal with, so I think we can shortcut that, if that's okay with you.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I borrow your pointer and can you put that plan back up on the screen, please?
Certainly. Sure.
There. So I'm just curious why I don't see any trees in this area within the 30-foot buffer, either saplings or otherwise. And it seems that you would need to plant something in here this we can talk about later, but this is, because it's outside the 30-foot buffer, but I don't see anything going in there either. But I would think that you would have to plant more trees through here in order to satisfy the 30-foot buffer requirement. You know, I see another area here with no trees, or they're not, if there are trees there, they're not drawn currently. You know, there's areas over here, so unless we decide that we don't have to satisfy the 30-foot buffer completely, I do see other areas that either need saplings or more mature trees planted.
I'm just assuming that those big, large, are big, mature trees, and that they're very
Correct.
shady, and that they're
Correct.
making,
And actually,
they're doing their job.
Correctly, and these trees in here, to the best of my knowledge, these trees in here actually, you don't see any 6 inches or greater because they actually died out. It wasn't that these trees were removed because.
Oh, they weren't removed, they died.
Right. So this is an existing, situation. This is an existing ecosystem that's going on here, and the same thing in this area here.
But that's
I understand.
not-
No. You're completely correct in here, and we can look
1
at.
out of 3.
Yep.
Was that the driveway that was?
Yeah, the driveway.
Yeah.
That was the driveway, so that is interesting why that wouldn't be,
Right, and we can actually look at this area in here, again, this is more of an easement, and I believe that these owners here actually have the right to actually not require us to
okay.
put these trees in, because they do actually have a pool in this area here, and they do use that for
But
secondary
there's that little
access.
tiny segment.
No, absolutely correct, yep, sorry.
Well, my question relates also to the areas that look to me to be sparsely planted from this, and again, it may not be accurate, but also, I've never, listening to various planning board meetings, heard of us planting saplings as a way to buffer or reforest an area. We generally ask for plants of trees of a certain size, and I'm wondering why we would relax that general requirement and allow saplings to be planted in areas where the buffer has to be maintained.
I think that's
Putting it out there.
Yeah, that's a question you can ask yourselves of how much you want to relax. You know,
Ken,
how much
what are your thoughts?
your
Good question for you.
Candidly, I thought that based on the 20 years of growth that they had seen, that it's about, it's just north of 50% of the original cost, which was 120 trees, which to me seemed a bit excessive based on the growth that is on here, and I think they're planting 65 now, 65 trees total.
But can you comment on the
The
use of
size is our
saplings?
issue.
Because I've never heard saplings approved by this board.
Right, the reason for that is that, we didn't wanna disturb the vegetation. The plan that you're seeing, Steve, the darker circles are existing mature trees.
Yeah.
What you're not seeing on there is the understory saplings and understory shrubs that are coming up underneath that.
Yeah.
And so to go in there and plant 10 to 12 trees, which is our normal minimum standard, you disturb
Sure.
all the forestation that's going on
Yeah.
currently. And
Makes
so
sense.
it seemed, so the other thing which I don't think has been mentioned is the hatched area underneath the saplings
Want to go to
That's
the
because we
picture,
can't
if you
see
mind.
it.
is a mixture, the seed mixture that we typically use when we don't want to have mulch that has woody native plants in it, as well as herbaceous native plants that will encourage the proper kind of growth. There's a lot of invasives that are coming in there right now, and we want to make sure that you bring in native material that will, hopefully keep that invasive plant growth at bay.
So when we talk about saplings, we're talking about like whips, just a single, small
In
whip.
terms of like 1 inch, half the trees about
Little
3
bigger
feet tall.
than a little bit, yeah.
But they're good species that will grow.
They're natives,
and
They're
and
natives.
they should,
There are a lot of red
thrive
maples or
there.
whatever,
Right,
so, yeah, and they do grow fast.
somewhat, yeah.
Well, to me, the smaller the tree, the quicker it establishes, you know.
Want to move to civil?
So you wanna move to the site plan review?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that okay? You don't want this discussion, is good? Okay, great. And now we commence with the site plan.
All right, so I know you're tight on time, so I don't need to go over a lot of the, just real quick. The site does slope from hilltop down this area here. There is an existing well on the property. There's an existing gravel drive, the shed, and we do have an existing septic system, which the civil engineer can actually talk to later, but we did have actually a letter from the Board of Health saying that we can use that septic system since it was never used. So, moving on. So what we did with the site development is that we had, keeping the neighbors in concern, the thought was is actually orientate the house, so this way it's actually all focused towards Old Road in terms of any lighting that we have here. There's limited light. We actually have one light fixture in this area here, a couple light fixtures in this area here. But we did try to limit, the drive coming up. It's 14 feet wide, and the reason why we have a little serpentine as opposed to coming straight through is that we wanted to maintain a minimum of 10% just to reach up to this grade. And just to follow up on that, this grade is actually right around the existing conditions. So the thought being is just that there is little earthwork done on this side here. We have a little bit of fill in this area here. To maintain this elevation, we had to come to 10%, and that's why we have a little bit of serpentine just to add a little bit of drive to it. The house is actually a little under 3,300 square feet. And actually the main house itself is about 3,000 square feet with about another 750 square feet of enclosed porch. Actually 300 square feet and another 700 square feet of garage with a room attached. Do have the architect here. He can talk about the house in a little bit more detail. We limited we have a patio area here, and we do have a walkout coming here. In terms of site disturbance, we do have a 3-foot-high retaining wall here and here, and that's because we have a 32-inch tree here that we're trying to protect, as well as I believe 24-inch that we're trying to protect in this area here. This wall that you see here is actually just freestanding. It's more of a safety concern, just in terms of cars that are parked here or backing out that they don't go over, but again, that's something that we can change into a fence if need be. And the only other wall that we're looking at is this short wall here, about 2 feet tall, just to handle the differential in between the garage and the main house, and then obviously the walls on either side of the walkout, again, just to try and limit the amount of grading. Going into the lighting.
Drainage, did we talk about drainage?
Actually, I was going to say the drainage for last, but we can go ahead and...
Okay.
Quick question, when you said 3,300 square feet,
yes,
talking about the footprint, not
the footprint, that is correct. The actual RGFA of the house is...
including the garage, 3,300.
Yeah. Correct. So, as mentioned, we're only removing 3 trees, 32-inch tree here and these 2 10-inch trees here. And then with respect to just getting into the landscape and lighting, we talked about the buffer, the trees here. We can look at, do we relocate some of these trees, put them over here to strengthen that buffer? We can look at, do we need to...
Yeah, let's save that for later after we see that.
Understand, just wanted to throw some options out there. In terms of lighting, we originally were around 19,000 lumens. After our intake meeting, we actually reduced it even further, so now we're around 18,000 and change. And really what it is, we have in the covered porch, we have recessed lighting in this area here. We have wall fixtures in this area here, where actually the bulb is underneath the shield. We have 1 post light here, 1 post light at the end of the drive, and then we have these bollard lights here, which are actually, there's 4 of them. They're only 31 inches tall, 4 watts each. So at the end of the day, we're around 18,000 and change for lumens. And with that, talk about...
Who would like to see the cut sheets for the lighting? Do you have them?
I do, actually.
Is this, are you presenting the landscaping, or is this it?
The landscape we talked about during the buffer area. The landscape, what we looked at doing...
So there's no landscaping within that?
Is it fenced? Is that why that area is so clearly delineated?
Right.
This area right here?
This is actually... What's happening in the white area?
This is actually all lawn area.
And is there a fence around that?
There is no fence.
Because it seems like a very hard line, like why aren't there any trees or... It seems quite odd for...
And a rectilinear.
And the thought was at some point in time, they actually might be putting in some shrubs along their side of the property, but we wanted to make it actually linear, just from a clear demarcation that this is a reforestation area, we don't want to go any further.
It's a meadow, it appears to be a meadow.
But even a meadow, I mean, edge is so hard all the way around.
Yeah, it is.
There's plants and shrubs and trees, and then boom. I'd like him to comment
It's
on
not
it.
our usual naturalistic.
That's a personal preference. I feel like, you know, that's not something that's gonna be seen from the outside, so.
That's true.
Right, and the thought really was to actually have this lawn that leads into this meadow with the trees going up and the reforestation area going.
And there's not like a single tree or major shrub within that entire white area?
We're actually tight, a little bit tight on room in terms of we have a septic system here, cesspool here, cesspool here. We have our utilities coming across here, so we don't actually have a lot of room to go ahead and put in any real mature trees. But we do have this wall that we're creating here in terms of these 10 to 12 foot evergreens along here to buffer this property here. I believe, Mr. Chair, you were looking for the cut sheets and lighting. So what we're looking at here,
Would you bring them up?
Yeah, bring 'em up here.
okay.
We know they're all California
They're all
code
dark sky.
compliant, right?
These, yep, you can see, so this is the bollard light, the light fixture is actually tucked in here, shining down,
Shielded.
again, this is shielded, that's shielded, and then we have the recess.
There were some little path lights there, but you've got little tiny path lights.
We actually, those are the
Those
bollard
are,
lights.
are those the ones?
Yep.
They're not trying to say they're pretty.
What's that? Right, and then that I'll introduce Jay to talk about the civil, because of the stormwater.
Hey Corey, do you mind if I borrow the laser there? My name's Jay Thrasher, I'm with Robial Water Limited. I'm here tonight with my colleague Tim Musnek.
So you may need to come up here.
Yeah, let me do that. Is it up? Is it in?
No.
You wanna look at, the other set?
Oh, do you have the
Yes,
entire?
the full set?
Yeah, I have the other set that you guys.
Okay.
sent to me. So yeah, you can scroll through this one and find your drawings.
Okay. There you go.
Right, so we focused on the stormwater design as well as the Title V design. As it was alluded to earlier, let's actually start with the stormwater. So for the stormwater, there's basically why do we do stormwater? Trying to decrease the runoff on the site. The existing impervious area was about 207 square feet from a shed on the property. The site, as it's proposed here, is about 9,700 square feet, just under 9,700 square feet of impervious area. That includes the house, the garage, the patios, and this driveway here. To, again, reduce the runoff from these impervious areas, we have a 6-chamber storm tech system over here that catches and infiltrates about half of the roof line of the house. We have a second infiltration system here. It's about 12 storm tech chambers, and that catches water from the walkout basement, a drain basin in the driveway, as well as some of the runoff from the roof line of the house and garage. And the third infiltration system we have on site is the trench drain here at the bottom of the driveway to catch basically runoff coming down this impervious area beyond this catch basin. So there's some details for that. And regarding the septic, there's an existing septic system that was mentioned previously. It consists of 2 leaching pits and a 2,000-gallon septic tank. We conducted a site visit with Dunn McKenzie, who was the original engineering firm that designed this when it was first constructed, and it's in excellent condition. You can still see the writing on the pipes. There's no infiltration of roots into these storm basins, and we actually had the Board of Health, Wendy Utility, come out and complete that inspection with us. So she's given her approval and sign off, and really kind of our scope here was ensuring that all these inverts, water still flows downhill, everything is as intended to operate as a fully functioning system, and also to specify this point of connection to the proposed grade, at foundation grade at the house.
Hear about the architecture?
Great, before, Jay, your thoughts on?
Yeah, I'm fine with stormwater. I mean, the septic's been there for 20 years.
Okay, got it. Any questions from the audience on the civil design? Okay, move to the house.
Okay. Okay. I think I sent you the house plans.
Those ones. You sent me house plans in a separate file? That one I don't think I have.
Okay, so I have the boards here.
Okay.
My name is David Johnson, Studio 26 Architects. Try not to lose my voice during this. What we've designed in working with the existing parameters and the engineers on the site is working with the meadow area as much as possible, and working with as much to minimize the impact of creating the driveway, creating a level area to actually build a house in, and to minimize the tree removal. What we've designed, I'm sure the elevations in massing, is a house that, for the RGFA, is a total of 5,664 square feet, which includes 2,242 square feet on the first floor, and 726 square feet for the garage, and then 2,696 square feet on the second floor, for the total of 5,664 square feet.
Does that include the bonus room?
It does, yes. Yeah, so the second floor, the house proper has 1,970 square feet, and then above the garage, the bonus room is the other 764 square feet. Plus it's 6 square feet, which brings us to the total.
Thank you.
Elevation. So this is the side of the garage here. What we try to do is, as well as keep a low profile roof on top of the house as well to minimize the overall mass and volume of the house. Keep it very simple, the shapes. We have an 8-on-12 pitch throughout the house, so really the highest point in the attic at the widest point of the house is only about 6.5 feet or so high, so there's not a lot of above second floor mass. The exterior siding materials, it's traditional clapboards in white, corner boards, traditional rake details, and black framed 2-over-2 very simple windows. We've got a the covered porch at the entryway, which, as Eric had said, we have lighting that's tucked up on the inner side of the porch to minimize any night glow and any disturbance to the neighbors.
Is that a seamed metal roof?
Yes, it is.
What color is that?
Be light gray.
The color is the side.
It'll be white. Right, and then the windows as drawn on here will be.
And the ridge height, total ridge height from natural grade?
We're at,
28 and a half.
yeah,
28 and a half.
28.
I was gonna say, did I hear you correctly?
You're 48, wait.
I said 28, and you
28
did
and a
that.
half.
It's stunning disbelief.
And so that's a composite of not overly high ceiling heights inside the house and a relatively low pitch roof throughout. And then if we look at the side that, as we enter facing the driveway, we have the 3-car garage. The covered porch is off to the side, and then the main mass of the house is here. And that 20 and a half is the highest point to the widest part of the main body of the house. The rest of it is like 26, and this is 24 over with the garage. We have 3 garage bays, traditional carriage look. Again, the same details carried through of the standing seam roof, cedar clapboards, corner boards, and 2/2 pretty consistently sized windows throughout.
And where are the mechanicals going, I should have asked this earlier, the mechanicals located on this property, AC, condensers, generator, et cetera?
They'll be on the back side of the garage.
And I can't see from here, what's that dark area showing under the gable there?
That's the walkout.
That's the walkout,
That's the
basically?
walkout.
Okay, I can't see from here.
Yeah, which is this area here.
I'm gonna get some opera glasses.
Yeah, so this view is looking straight on the house this way. And then if we continue around,
So just to clarify, you asked about a generator, there is no generator.
There is no generator, okay, not even a pad for one in the future, maybe?
We could look at that, we could actually look at the back side.
this is the view from the south, looking up at the house this way. Again, same details carried out, very simple in its mass and scale, and same materials carried throughout.
Where's the 28 and a half measured from?
That's the highest point here.
Right.
And then our average grade. And twisting the house around, we sort of found the flattest part of the entire property, and such that I think our grade changes.
Yeah, we kind of actually balanced it out, we actually filled a little bit on one end and cut in on the other side.
Yeah, to the tune of like, I think that the most regrading is in the 18-inch to 2-foot mark. So there's not a lot of heavy,
And sort of balanced, it's balanced.
It's balanced.
You're not bringing anything.
Was there a chimney that I didn't see, or there's no chimney?
there's no chimney.
Chimney, no turrets. No cupolas?
And then the final elevation, which is the which is now looking, we rotate up here, is the back side here, looking straight out from this way, from the back of the garage.
So when we were talking about the Cooper's house, which elevation is them, is facing them?
This elevation right here is facing them.
So which one on the?
Cross sections?
Which one are they?
Yeah, I'm trying to get to it, sorry. There we go, that's the one.
Okay.
So we're here, house is up in here, their edge height is at 222.
Mhm.
And I believe it's around, I want to say 218.
And what elevation do they face? Is it an east elevation?
Sure.
Which?
They're going to be facing the rear of the house,
The
essentially.
rear of the house, okay.
Yep, so they're going to be facing this elevation, so like,
So show us. on the-
Yep, understand, so if you can show them this elevation.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's the,
thank you. Just we like to look at potential lumens.
that's this one.
Okay.
What lighting is on that side? That's it.
Great question, we actually only have this
It's
fixture
by the
here,
doors.
this fixture here, and then we do have one, but this one again down below, so down by the wall.
Just 2 fixtures, not just.
So access to this patio here, there's a door here, and a door here, and one in the middle, and we resolved that with 2 light fixtures.
Sorry, I just wanted to.
Yeah, here and here. Going out to the patio, so there's 3 doors there and 2 lights out to that.
Yeah, we actually tried to condense it down to, take the 3 entries, and if we have the 2 lights,
Yep.
use that to.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna turn it to the audience for any questions, any elaboration or concerns.
I did get an email from Terry for this project that
Okay.
house out.
Sure. Would you like to read it, Nima?
I can, or
Or
Terry can? Okay. As a friend and former Hill neighbor of Alan and Magali Weber and children, I was invited in recent weeks to review the proposed plans for constructing a new family residence at 60 Old Road, Weston. They had indicated interest in the property some time ago and apparently have constructively spent the intervening months working with the respected experts to develop a proposal that has now been submitted to the town of Weston and will be shortly be coming before the planning board for approval. You may well recognize Alan by sight, given that he was an engaged participant in the neighborhood meetings at my home. I have known the Webers to be sensitive and respectful residents of Weston, and in particular of our historic Hill neighborhood. I was honored by their outreach and intrigued to see how they would approach development of this unique plot of land. I was pleased to see the creative way that they have chosen to address its inherent issues. In reviewing the online plans, I was struck by the sensitivity of the Webers' consideration of ways in which their proposed residence would minimally affect the environment, the natural landscape, and importantly, the views from abutting neighbors. In particular, I paid attention to their sensitive choice in location of the access driveway, retention of existing vegetation and trees, and the important aesthetics of the finished product relative to its siting in a historic neighborhood and need to fit in with regards to architecture and adequate setbacks from neighboring homes. Given that the sale of this property was originally quite contentious for the voracious raising of its landscape, neighbors will care that the existing greenery is preserved to the extent possible and screening from neighboring homes amply retained and new trees provided. As close as I can tell from the online plans, the Webers have adequately anticipated any concerns that I or others on our hill might express. I am satisfied that they have developed a proposal that is sensitive to the site and to our historic neighborhood, and I fully support their efforts.
is that still your point of view, Terry?
Yes.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah. Excuse me, I was just asking neighbors for a second, okay. Any other inputs from neighbors? We are definitely gonna dig into the viewpoint from the Coopers. We need to spend time.
Can I just add a comment?
Sure.
First of all, we thoroughly support the Weber's plan in an overall sense. We just have concerns about
Your view.
our view and what can be done
Sure.
to make up for.
In 3 minutes, I think, we're gonna talk about that.
Okay, but just seeing the plans and the 16 windows that face up to us, that we look down on, and I know they can't all be blocked, but all that open space directly behind the house without any trees now will make that all the more glaring. And the placement of trees.
If you can hold that thought,
Okay,
we'll
sure.
come right back to you.
Okay.
You'll have the stage in about 3 minutes. You go ahead and follow.
I just wanted to add, I have emails from 3 abutters who couldn't be here tonight who are
Okay,
also in
equally
support.
supportive?
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
from 23 Old Road, 25 Hilltop, and 69 Pigeon Hill Road.
Okay, I can want to submit it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Steve, any board members have any other questions? So is it okay with you if we now dig into the issue of the view from the
Sure.
Coopers? Is that a reasonable thing to do? Okay.
I was just gonna say, can I make two quick points, just to kind of give a little bit of context. One was
Is this, we're now talking about the Coopers or something else?
This is actually talking about the site improvements, I think, for the questions about in terms of landscape improvements and what we can do here. I just wanted to give a context in terms of why there wasn't more landscaping within the
Did
property.
you address the issue?
Okay then.
Okay, so let's talk about the Coopers. Who starts? Kim?
Sure, so in looking at this, I think that the problem is that this house is down very low and the
Yeah,
Coopers are
right.
up very high.
Right.
And so it might make sense to move
Can we go back to the
those.
site?
Sure.
What's the best place to look, Steve?
The plan that was
Here?
just on is probably, can you go back, yeah.
There you go.
Okay, here, okay, great.
Move those evergreens higher up the hill, closer to the Coopers. I think you're gonna get more bang for your buck, because Eric, can you just give us an idea of what the change in grade is from?
Certainly, between this
Up
area and this area here, you're
Well,
talking.
no, from there, where your pointer was, there, down to the house.
Down to here.
Yeah,
Change in grade is you're on 10, and then I want to say you're somewhere in the range of around like 16, 18 feet.
16 feet. 16 to 18 feet, so a 10 to 12.
Is there room to put the trees?
I
It's gonna-
think what we might want to do is one of our standard contingents or conditions is to
Site placement.
field locate those.
Yeah, field locate, yeah.
In an area where we're not going to disturb the roots
Okay.
of other trees, but get them as high up on the hill as possible, which could mean closer to the Cooper's property,
Which is all positive.
which is all positive.
Okay, got it.
In terms of view blocking.
Right.
And is it worthwhile to ask, are more trees better or bigger trees better?
Like 6 trees or something.
Yeah,
Right.
5 or 6 as opposed to 3. I mean, these spruce branch low, they don't drop their lower limbs, so you in time are gonna get 25 feet of coverage per
Yeah.
tree. So you're talking about, 75 feet out of 3 trees and 150 out of 6
Right.
trees,
The
so.
the challenge is that they're high above, so anything that was below, they're gonna see to some extent, so.
Right.
You can only go so far.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I can see like having, a group of 3 trees where those are and a group of another 3 trees right where he's pointing.
Right.
So like 2 sets of.
As long as we don't disturb the roots of
Yeah.
that.
Right,
area.
exactly, exactly.
And bigger trees make sense or they don't?
Not necessarily
well,
with the
the-
root ball
Exactly.
there, yeah.
The bigger they are, the
They're
more
more
disturbance.
No
Okay.
longer.
Right, but our standard minimum is 10 to 12, so I hesitate to go below that for a site plan review.
Right.
The rebuffering was the zoning issue, which was,
Right,
in
I
my
understand.
opinion, a
Right.
different
Yes,
animal.
okay.
So,
And
Well-
planting at the bottom of the
I
hill is
mean,
not.
unless you,
And I'm just thinking that if there is some, I didn't actually look at that whole area and what was in there in terms of, mature, large, deciduous trees. And,
that one's big.
and that one's big, yeah, with variety.
But planting in the meadow doesn't do much good, right?
No.
Right.
Doesn't.
It's not gonna
Needs
do
to be up
anything.
close to their house.
Got it.
Yeah,
Even at full maturity,
Right, you're not gonna block anything because you're
Right.
looking down on it.
right. But, I mean, we might be able to fit in a smaller root ball and somehow, I don't know.
Okay.
I would just caution you to make the language in the decision very specific.
Specific that in this
Field
instance,
locate.
well, field locate, but also
No,
in
the
this
size
instance,
to-
we maybe have
Right.
accepted a smaller root ball, simply because we
Okay.
can't,
Right.
it has to be hand
Oh,
dug
field locate
among.
the size too.
Right.
No,
No.
what
Field
I'm
locate a
saying
smaller
is to
tree.
Yeah, right, okay.
deviate from our
Standard.
normal
Standard.
standard
Okay,
condition,
got it.
10 to
That's been
12.
my-
We have a minimum.
I
Yes,
see.
Yeah.
exactly.
Right. You
We,
don't want-
we did do that at 12 Autumn. We allowed that deviation because they were going into an already wooded area to
Yeah.
infill.
So I'd like to hear from the Coopers just one more time if I could, on the feedback on those suggestions.
Okay, if you're suggesting 6 trees move closer up the hill towards our lot line, what is the mature distance of those 6 trees in comparison to the lot itself from Hilltop Road down to the bottom part of the lot? In other words, the land goes up, the grade goes up to our house?
Once you come in, once you point, that'll be more effective.
So I guess if there are going to be 6 trees planted along here, what is the dimension from the top tree to the bottom tree in comparison, a full growth, in comparison to the actual lot distance, land distance from here to here? I mean, is it half, is it a third?
Full grown.
So
How much of that
but the
distance
spruce
is
isn't
gonna be
fully
lawn?
grown.
Yeah, right, so when these are full grown,
50.
what distance of this is going to be covered by those 6 trees?
Oh, I see.
Oh,
What
so
obscurity are
there's-
you
what-
getting?
What's,
Right.
what's roughly 150 feet at that scale?
Hold on, actually, this is up.
Yeah, that's good.
But isn't there a lot of vegetation within that?
Horizontal coverage is what you're
Yes.
Yeah, right, and over what period of time is that going to take to do that?
That's fair.
Right, because to say at full maturity, maybe 20 years.
We're not going to be here.
That's what I mean, right, who's gonna be here, right?
Yeah.
It's just hard to tell, it's just gonna show the
I
area
know,
on the
you
site.
can't, exactly.
That's
There's
probably-
no
You can't
ideal
do it.
solution.
The best we can do would be the small ones and make row.
So Dave, do you have an answer for him?
Yeah, we're just staring at it.
Yeah, where my fingers are pointing,
Okay.
ouch, no one can see, so from like the corner of Hilltop to where,
Eric, can you go back to that landscape?
sure, I wasn't,
Go back to where we were.
yeah, that one, right there. So from like that property line right at Hilltop to
Mhm.
where that other dash line hits the property line,
Yeah,
right
perfect.
there, that's about like 200 feet.
Okay.
And so
So 6 would be about 150.
150, plus you have the existing material.
So
Unless
three
we
quarters,
stagger
you're
them.
talking about
Yeah,
three
maybe
quarters
a little
is
bit
covered.
less, but, yeah.
And that's at full maturity?
And how long is full maturity versus what you plan
Well, they're
to?
probably gonna go in at a roughly 8
Yeah.
feet diameter.
You can't plant them any closer because you have to allow full maturity.
I understand that, just was trying to understand the time frame and how much, to Michael's point, would be covered today versus how many years full coverage.
Right, so if they go in at roughly 8 feet diameter,
Minimum augmentation.
8 times 6
Yeah, so we
is
can go
48,
more,
right?
actually.
So about 48 feet, but not in a solid wall, kind of dotted, so you'll have little views, but
Broken
again,
up.
but you're not looking at that house through
Yeah.
holes, you're gonna be slightly at an angle, so hopefully more will be covered. And then it takes about 2 to 3 seasons for plants to really settle in and start to put on growth, and then after that, they'll put on growth at a modest rate. I mean, I think 2 feet a year is a little optimistic, but maybe a foot a year. You know, once they have that first initial 2 to 3 seasons to settle in.
So the 6 trees are up top and the trees remain at the bottom as well? Or, Steve, that was your suggestion?
I think we said 6 total.
6 trees total?
Yes, six
Oh, 6
trees.
trees total,
Three
lining from top to bottom.
Three probably about where they are, and
Okay.
3 further up
Okay.
the slope.
But I think we field locate them with
Exactly.
the abutters.
Yes.
Exactly.
So that you
So
can be
it
in
could
your
Stand here on
house.
your porch, stand
Right.
here in your
It
kitchen.
could be different than that.
Right.
Right, right.
Because I think you'll find that there's also trunks of mature trees there too that are providing some screening.
So can I ask another question?
I know, I'm gonna,
Is the land still,
Sure.
is the land still sloping here, or at what point does it become flat?
This was gonna be too easy.
Currently, under the proposed conditions. Currently it is, okay, under proposed conditions, we're actually, this is gonna be sloping to this area here, and then there's a swale that goes here and here, so this is still gonna be sloping down.
So,
Yes.
sorry. So I'm just wondering, what is the grade difference between,
Yeah.
say, here and it's obviously not the full 16 or 18 feet.
Which area you're looking at? Sorry.
Like from here
Those trees? Yeah.
to, say, here.
Yeah, like 12 feet.
Oh, it is that much?
Drop.
Very steep.
Yeah, in the house itself, the first floor is probably 10 feet at least off the grade.
We have three full stories in the back of our house, which faces, you know, the Webbers, they're gonna see our house much like we'll see theirs.
Exactly.
We'll look forward to
Waving at each other, but you're far apart.
I mean, there's no getting around that.
Correct.
So
It
the
is
grade-
a new structure.
But
in
from
your
our
backyard.
yard,
So Eric, what's the feedback on 3 additional trees in that planting plan?
So 3 additional trees in this area here.
Right, does that make sense? And the planting plan that Kim talked about, field locate?
That makes,
Okay,
That
that makes
makes really
sense to
sense.
the applicant. Okay, great. So are we close to a solution for the Coopers, or people feeling comfortable given the situation? Great. Any other feedback from the audience or questions from the audience? Or members here? Great. Are we all set with this hearing? Going once, going twice, okay, so we will now.
Well,
So we get now.
wait a minute, there's Terry's point
Terry?
earlier.
so my point was from Hilltop, it's pretty sparse. And admittedly, the house is gonna be seated very low, but for the purpose of the 30-foot buffer, I'm not sure that I agree that it's been taken care of.
Is this the area where there are people, the owners have a pool or something there? Is that what we're talking about?
Who's impacted, Terry?
Point to the
If
area
you
you're
arrive, who's
concerned
impacted?
It's the view from the street.
The view from the
Basically,
street.
It's the scenic road view.
It's the scenic
And
road
Eric,
view.
what's your point of view on that?
Point of view is that this area here is already, it's 30 feet below, and the views into this are very, very sparse, and with the reforestation area, that should be taken care of. I mean, the house is actually located somewhere around 186 feet away from Hilltop Road. So if the house was located right in this area here, I completely understand the concern, but we're located further away.
Kim, your point of view?
Well, but it's not just the house, it's the fact that it's a scenic road. And the trees were cut.
You're saying you're not able
don't
to
get
get the trees weren't cut there, I don't think.
Well, how many of those
years
existing
ago,
trees are
They
deciduous
were
versus evergreen?
years ago.
So you're talking about 20 years ago
80%
issue
deciduous, maybe 20%.
that the zoning board at
The
that
sap
time.
ones
Yeah.
coming in are most of the pines.
And so I don't think, personally, I don't
So,
think it's been
Kim, what's your
satisfied.
point of view on that? Should more trees be placed in that area to give it more of a
I
scenic?
Like
would
evergreen
put
or-
trees in there, if anything, I would do understory, because
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But I mean,
Just some green.
Some green.
maybe.
It's really
So you're talking about some shrubs?
She knows, I mean, she lives nearby, she knows what she's talking about.
No, not just,
Yeah.
So something like mountain laurel?
But it's just
Yeah.
to say
Well,
it's natural,
yeah.
it's like it is, why do you want to change something?
So we're looking at
Something more
just-
natural?
yeah, more natural, so you're talking about like some mountain laurel, probably in the range of like 2.5, 3 feet tall, we're talking 3, 4 feet tall.
Yeah, I didn't walk up there, so I can't.
I mean, I actually pulled my car up there to take a look in there, because I was very concerned about what can you see. And the limit that I could see is actually this area right in here, not towards the house.
But I think what Terry's talking about
Sure.
is as a neighbor
Understand.
who had been there for so many years, she's
Yep.
kind of
Right.
talking
Right.
about what happened and.
And
So
to
did we-
Terry's point too, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just that the intent of the ZBA was to maintain this wide buffer. And if it's grown back some, I'm sorry, I wasn't there, so I've gone by, but I didn't go on the sidewalk, but I think that we have to be really careful to follow what the ZBA intended, and that was to have a 30-foot healthy treed buffer. And so however we can do that in our decision, to have that, a robust buffer, I think that's really important.
And beyond that, I mean, we have our own issues.
Correct, right.
Sorry. So if we're looking at
Both issues.
So we're looking at some
some native
understory.
shrubs,
Yeah,
And
and
this-
that's, Kim, that makes sense to you?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine, I mean, maybe it's, do you want them to quantify it on the plan right now?
Okay, can we continue it and have
No,
that?
I
No,
think we
we
should
continue.
Okay,
I think that's probably something we should condition and then review a plan.
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
that's good, okay, great. That's acceptable. Okay, Terry, does that sound good?
Yes.
She's recommending against more trees, actually, and
Well,
understand.
whether it's trees or just some greenery, something other
Yeah,
than the
exactly.
scrubby brush that was left.
Okay, good.
And I certainly, you know, I fully support the Webbers.
Right, I know.
And so I certainly wouldn't want to cause this, make this a sticking point, but I just
Okay.
think if we're talking about
Okay.
maintaining what was supposed to be done by the ZBA.
And it's
Right,
the same
over the
road.
original order from the
Seen by the
ZBA.
ZBA, we need to address that.
Okay, my second attempt. I think we're done. Thanks, I appreciate it. So we'll have a decision when, Imai?
October 2nd.
October 2nd.
Nice job.
Thanks, everyone. I know it was difficult. Appreciate the patience from everyone. And the input, really key, really key. All right, let's move on. 42 Newton, site plan approval for a new wastewater plant. Wastewater system.
Thank you.
Do you mind grabbing the number?
Yes, sir.
It is going to be,
That's what I took to realize that.
Yeah.
Ron, do you need these?
Yeah.
you can always connect it.
Great. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, do we have the applicant?
Yep,
Oh, it's Rob.
Rob and Eric again.
Rob, you're not wearing a baseball cap.
Again?
Sun's not out.
Think we can get this done in 20 minutes, Rob?
You know me, I can.
Yeah, right.
I'll try to get you back on schedule.
Have the ability.
All
You've
right,
done
so
such a great job. I think it's gonna
then I'll go to the truncated version, Cliff Notes. So this is Pine Brook Country Club for, and
Steve was not able to.
Steve was not able to make it, and I don't think Alicia, was Alicia, no, you were there.
I was there.
Yeah, okay, so you guys have seen it. They've got a wastewater treatment plant, which is up here, coming up Newton. Ware Street would be down here, you're coming up Newton Street, maintenance building, main clubhouse. This is the existing wastewater treatment facility right along Newton Street. The plant's approximately 60 years old. It's an antiquated technology. It no longer meets the performance standards that it needs to under DEP's requirements, so they're under basically an order to replace the plant. Right now, that plant discharges through a force main that actually comes right down here into the brook, and it has a surface water discharge. So in the logistics of trying to make this, this thing work, we need to be able to maintain this plant operational while we build a new plant. And also parenthetically, all these structures are actually within the zoning setback of Newton Street, so they're all pre-existing non-conforming structures. So we did want to create a system that complies with zoning, so we can put zoning board for variances for the system as well. So what's going on then is the new plant is proposed to be constructed on the south side of Newton Street in this location. Right now, this plant in this area here, these are open tanks, so that there's odors associated with it. There's noise from fans and blowers and that sort of thing. The new plant will be either within this building or all the tanks will be underground. It will then discharge after treatment all the way down through here to a new leaching field. So we'll be removing the surface water discharge, which eventually goes into the Charles River, which is a stress watershed. And we'll be putting that into the ground in this location. So environmentally, you know, it's a win-win. Let's see, now can we change to, I think I got a bigger sheet?
This one?
Yeah, so this one. So what's going on as far as site plan review in Newton Street's obviously a scenic road. Right now, there's a driveway that comes out here because the plant needs access every day. There's an operator there full-time. We want to realign the driveway with the driveway across the street. The site distance is better in this location than it is here. It's not great, but it's better. So that's a more appropriate place for the driveway. So the driveway will come in this location. We'll have utilities crossing under the street in terms of water, electric, and then a force main. What happens is the effluent comes down from the main clubhouse to this location. Right now it goes into the plant. In the future it will go into a little pump station, and then that pump station will pump it across the street and into the plant where all the treatment occurs. The new building fully conforms with zoning. We're, let's see, we're about, it's 1,300 square feet. We're 69 feet off of this lot line, and we're about 170 feet off of Newton Street in this location. Footprint itself is 1,300 square feet. It's a slab building, but it does have a section of it that has a sump. There's treatment going on inside the building. Average existing grade plane around the building is 160.16. The height of this building above the slab is 17 feet. Above average existing grade plane is 18 feet. So it's a relatively low profile building. If you're familiar with the golf course, there's they call it a snack shack, but it's actually a pretty nice building that's located in this location here. And the architecture is designed to match that, and our architect will go through the architecture with you once I'm done. In terms of the infrastructure, the driveway is designed at 14 feet to meet the fire department requirements. We have a turnout here so they can get in and out. We're collecting all the stormwater from the driveway and putting it into an infiltration system right here, even though this project actually results in a net reduction in impervious area of about 3,200 square feet. So even without putting in any drainage, we'd be improving it just by getting rid of the impervious areas. But just to maintain the environmental awareness, we are getting all the water back into the ground in this location. The plan is obviously to build this plant and the leaching field that I showed you before. And then once that's done, this infrastructure will be removed. Eric Joseph, after he's recovered from 60 Old Road, I guess can come in and talk about what's going on here, but the intention is that this whole area will be naturalized. Right now there's a pond here that discharges to a stream, so there's a little bit of a culvert in here. So this area will be naturalized with wetland plants, and the rest of this will be maintained as like a high fescue meadow that won't require irrigation or a lot of mowing other than a couple of times a year. I think I mentioned the building itself is only 18 feet tall. No windows at all on this side. The access is here and here. So we can go through the lighting too, but there's just minimal lighting at the entrances. We do have a generator that's located in this location. These are, that's an infiltration system for the building, and all these other boxes are actually treatment tanks that are part of the system. So in the interest of being quick, I'll just stop there and let Eric talk about the landscaping proposal.
Just one question, you
Yep.
looked into the, probably a pretty big generator, you looked into the 40 dB issue.
We looked into the 40 dB issue. Bill, the architect, can talk about that. I don't think we can quite meet the 40. I think we're looking at getting to 48. But we did do an acoustic sound study, and that information was presented, I think earlier.
I got it today, yeah.
Yeah. I think the long and the short of it is, with the proper sound enclosures and fencing around this, we can knock it down to 48, and it'll only operate in terms of the testing, basically during the day when there'll be doing other golf course operations like mowing and things like that. So we should be able to keep the sound of the generator within the ambient levels produced by the golf course.
Yeah, if I could add to that. So what we did in our acoustical testing over the course of a week, and what we did find is the ambient in that area between the property lines is 48 decibels, daytime ambient sound level.
From what?
From road? Road noise, and also mowing, when there's fairway mowers, greens mowers, so.
Golfers throwing their clubs.
Swearing.
I didn't say that. What's me?
Does your generator swear?
That wasn't me, last thing we bought, that was the generator.
So with that, I'll let Eric.
Thanks. Oh, you're sideways here. Uh-oh.
So I've been told.
So my
Great, thanks a lot. So, we're actually looking at two planting areas. We're looking at the area where the new building is going, as well as the restoration of this area here. Much to everyone's chagrin, we are going to have to get rid of the old fence in this area here, this beautiful stockade fence that's going to be going, but what's going to be in its place actually, once the buildings and the stockade fence is down, is we actually got more of a naturalized area, which has actually been ported.
That's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah, we got a combination of blue grasses, blue irises, we've got great dogwoods. So a lot of conservation plantings in this area here. As we get closer to Newton Street, we're looking at several red oaks, again trying to keep in nature with what we have here, as well as 11 or 9 service berries. So kind of blending between some flower as well as some conservation in this area here. So this is going to be a nice restored area. And then this area here is just going to be
more fescues that are gonna be allowed to naturalize. So then coming around here, obviously our concern is with respect to the house is how to provide a buffer for this area here. So this is why we actually got this wall of evergreens. We've actually got 3 14 to 16 foot tall. I believe these areas here, we're looking at the spruces. Again, just concerned about shade. We also have some spruces up in this area here. These are actually in the range of around, say, 10 to 12s. And then with some understory plantings, and then coming on to this area here, actually looking at 14 to 16 foot tall Douglas firs. And again, my concern, the reason for the change is just from a road salt standpoint. Spruce is less susceptible. So, and again, filling this area in with some more understory, just to kind of block the views going into this area here. There is an existing fence along here, and an existing fence along here that actually is going to remain. Getting to lighting, we're actually, this area here has actually got a total of, I want to say, somewhere around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, around 8 fixtures. And we're looking actually removing those fixtures, so that's actually going to decrease the lumens by 86 hundredths. And then we're actually looking at 4 proposed fixtures here, and these are actually just recessed cans underneath the soffit, so there's no dark sky issues to be concerned about. So at the end of the day, we're actually reducing the amount of lumens by 2,000 lumens.
And these fixtures on around the existing plant are like big spotlights?
Yes.
Industrial type? Yeah.
Have you ever gotten in touch with that neighbor? The house, right?
This house? Yeah, 35.
Yeah.
Dave Garfinkel, who's the Franklin's general manager, is right here. David reached out and spoke with him
3 or 4 months ago.
yeah, before we went to conservation,
Okay.
and briefed him on the project,
Okay.
and he basically seemed pretty ambivalent about it.
No concerns expressed, Imai?
No.
He hasn't come to me with any, no.
And we did go to conservation, we have approval for all the work that's within resource areas and buffer zones.
Great. Are you done?
I am, you want to go to the
Take a look at the architecture of the building?
Yep, that's great.
Architecturally built, speaking, the building is fairly straightforward. We took on the club took on a series of projects in 2013, which included the irrigation pump house and snack bar, which are located in this area. And we're building off of that vernacular. So this here is the pump house, the wastewater treatment building. We have the elevation towards Newton Street, the elevation towards the neighbor, and this side towards the club greens area. As said, the lighting is all in the soffits, just highlighting the exits for emergency reasons. Again, this is the general styling of the buildings. We have a gray cedar shingle, a gray asphalt shingle roof, white trim throughout, and so this is the pump house, which is down the hill, and the snack house, which is a little bit more elaborate, that's up towards the top of the hill.
You don't have pictures of the existing buildings, the treatment plant?
The existing treatment plant?
Yeah, not worth taking, I
No.
understand. I just want to give Steve that.
They can drive by and see it.
Yeah, okay.
It's right there on the roadside.
Imagine if you will.
It is a building.
Imagine if you will, a building with these views.
Good? Anything else? Any questions from the audience? Dave? Your opinion?
The stormwater's fine,
Okay.
it needs to be done, I mean, surface discharge to the
On the
brook.
brook.
The brook.
Charles, yeah,
Yeah.
not-
Right, that's such a great idea.
I can see that at the time, but not anymore.
Kim? You're happy with the reforestation on the right-hand side? Any questions for the board?
Yes, I have one. When we were walking out, I believe the landscaping up by the clubhouse.
Eric can address that.
Would you like to write down here?
It's Eric's fault.
Address it.
Yeah, so in this area here, across from Newton Street, we obviously had, fortunately, actually, do you have a
You want
plan?
to pull that over?
That'd be great,
Drawing
thank
up
you.
it shows it.
This one?
Yep.
Fantastic, thank you.
Right up in here.
Yep. So in this area here,
Yes.
so nothing gets by Sue. We walked around the corner and that was the first thing she noticed. But yes, actually, unfortunately, we did have several trees, actually a number of trees die. What was actually approved was that we had 4 dogwoods located on this area here, along with several rhododendrons going along that wall. I want to say somewhere in the range of around 20 rhododendrons. And then we also had 4, I believe, oaks in this area here. So it was total 8 trees and around 20 shrubs.
How weird that they all died.
You know, I think just given the exposure that's here, maybe some issues with the irrigation system, but yeah, it is
Treatment
gonna.
plant got to them.
It was a long way away.
Chlorine.
Looking for golf balls.
So,
But in answer to
the
your
plan-
question-
The plan is, I mean, that is a.
They're gonna be replacing it.
There we go. Any time frame?
We checked on inventory, we're having trouble with inventory this time of year.
Yeah.
Size of 3.5 to 4 inch caliper inch trees that are healthy, just difficult to get, we'll probably get them in the spring. We're trying to get as much as we can now. We're working with Weston Landscaping on the project.
So to follow up on that, kind of what I would like guidance from the board for is, you know, how much, do we want to tie any point in this project to that replacement? Like say you have to replace, okay.
No.
No.
Good.
Let them move on.
Okay.
We'd
They
like to
know
get
I'm
the
gonna
plan
drive
running.
by. And
Okay.
I'll be calling the barrack.
Yeah.
But as a
Sue
point
will
of
be on
order,
it.
then how, if you don't, then how do you enforce something if you don't?
It was a special permit that
Right.
went,
Right,
and that is enforced.
right,
And
but they're all dead, so then so
They'll
they'll just.
remove them.
They have to
You
replant.
will monitor.
Yeah, I'll have to
You
see
might-
them
I'm just
replant
asking
and,
how
you know,
it's
but
enforced, okay.
I won't be able, and I don't think you guys are wrong for saying going forward, that's why I asked, you know, I just, but,
Okay,
and, you know, in some cases, we might say, you know, nothing until you've corrected.
right.
I think in this
Does
case, we
stone
want
wall
water,
work?
not sewer water.
Does stone wall work?
There's some stone wall work.
So we have
Oh,
to
that's
prove
right.
that.
Just a little
Scenic
bit.
road.
Yeah. Where this driveway is,
Because they're removing rocks, they're changing the.
yeah, where this
they're
driveway is
lining it
right
up.
now is being closed up, and this is being opened up, so we're gonna take a little bit of the wall right here, and then close up that spot right there.
So isn't that another permit?
No, this wall is within their property, it's not on the right, it's not on the right of way.
Okay, got it, okay. Okay, any questions? Any more comments, Steve? All set? Okay, decision when?
Second.
Okay. Thanks, guys, for your
Terrific.
patience.
Thank you.
Very economic. All right. Moving right along.
Inclusive dogwoods that are
Three block
replacing, but
up.
there's a ton more vegetation than that, I guess.
8 trees and about 20 shrubs.
All right.
So everything in red, yeah, so it's everything in red.
Yes, exactly. Here.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Bill.
I'd like you to give us a briefing on that.
Actually, can
Yeah, I
I
can
do
do
that?
that.
Oh, actually, Dan, I'd like.
Yeah, so this was a site plan review of a house in 2017. Since then, they put a fence on the scenic road right away, or not the right of way, but along the scenic road, that's a 6-foot cedar. It was not approved by the planning board. So we had Leslie go out to do a site visit just to check out, see how it is.
Yeah.
And she had some comments.
Did
So
people,
she,
do people have Leslie's comments?
Yes.
do we have photos?
Yes, we have
Must have
photos.
gotten
Yeah, can I, oh, I'll go this first.
Yeah.
Can you remind us of Leslie's comments?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that right after
Thank
this.
you. Oh. The one, yeah.
Black Oak,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's horrible.
All right, so Leslie noted that it was a 6-foot tall cedar fence, painted a medium gray. She had an issue with the medium gray color, it looked like a metal siding. She didn't think that color, resembled the suitability of a scenic road. Fences and board at the right of way between 10 and 20 feet. Many existing canopy trees have been maintained on both sides of the fence. What she suggested is she paints.
Why don't you, Dana, why don't you walk through the photos for Steve, because the other members haven't seen them.
All right, so Mario took these photos. zoom in a little bit. So right here, this is actually a neighbor, this is across the street. And then you can see on the left, that's 3 block out. Once again, another rendering from the side. Across the street, just to kind of show the board. And then we have a good picture down here which shows both of them.
Yeah, that's the best picture for me.
So you have the opposite side of the street, and you have here.
We can't see some difference in color though, but okay.
Yeah, so Leslie's issue with the color was the medium gray kind of made it seem more metallic. So her suggestion was to be, painting it kind of a darker green, which would be approved by the planning board, obviously. And then to break up the commercial look of the fence by planting some acorn finials along each fence post. And then also putting some native shrubs, such as viburnums, along the public side of the fence. And then she noted that screening the fence would be the goal of these plantings, not to increase the buffer for the house.
Okay, thanks. All right, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm the owner of the property at 3 Black Oak Road. And so I'm just gonna, I know that there's a couple of neighbors that have objections to this fence. And I'm really sorry to hear about that. Obviously, my intentions were not to upset anybody, so I want to give you guys sort of my answer to the letter that I read from one of the neighbors. I also know there's another neighbor here that is a butter on,
I have the letter here too, if you want to reference that.
I know there's also another neighbor here that's in a butter on Highland Street. And I have not met them, but I have met the wife. Yes. And she had come down when the fence was being constructed and questioned the proximity to the property line. And I basically told her that the fence was on my property, but that I wouldn't install any more fence along their property. They're the abutters on the side. So I'm sure you guys want to speak at some point. I don't know if you want to speak now or after I'm done.
Can we clarify something?
Yes.
What does Dana, what does Leslie mean? The fence is in board of the right-of-way between 10 and 12 feet, and then you say you didn't install it in the right-of-way. Where is it relative to the right-of-way, Dana?
I don't believe it's in the right of way. I'm not sure what she's referencing. 10 to 20 feet.
Do you know if it's in the right of
Is
way?
it in the right-of-way or not?
No, the right-of-way is actually the front of this stone wall. It's actually, there's a marker that's like almost a foot off of the pavement there. So if do you have the site plan?
Yeah, let me get
The
that.
landscape plan?
Are any neighbors here? Okay.
Highland Street neighbor.
Great.
So I just wanted to say that the fence was planned and installed with good intentions as a means to privacy. And when Leslie came to the site walk, she came in through the property and it was very clear and evident to her, why the fence was there and what, the purpose of the fence. The house is on the market, and the feedback from the potential buyers, and there's one person very interested now that has 2 little kids, and the feedback was that the privacy from the traffic, especially the cars and the noise on Highland Street, was a main concern that the families are having. This particular buyer has 2 small children, and that was a huge concern for them. During the landscaping phase of the project, they're not shown on the plan here, but during the landscaping phase of the project, I added a bunch of trees here that are not shown on the plan and they weren't required. They're hemlock trees, And I did that to try and mitigate this privacy issue. Because the added trees that were here, you know, this is like a huge swath of undisturbed area, but the trees are very tall and there's no understory. And it doesn't seem like anything is gonna grow very well in there. And it's such a long piece along Highland Street that there's just, talking to my landscaper and my landscape architect, there's just no quick remedy. You can plant there, but it's gonna be a long time before you're going to take the road and the noise away. So I put a lot of thought and planning into what I should do. And I tried to, in addition to adding the planting to create the privacy, it didn't solve the problem. So,
So Mario, I'm gonna ask to hear from neighbors now, is that okay?
sure.
Okay, great. Did any of the neighbors want to speak up?
Also, we have
Okay, great.
Dmitry Shashko, 263 Highland.
Great.
If you're facing the Highland Street, we are neighbors to the right.
Okay, great.
So, Mario, I did look at the fence as it was built and talked to my wife, and I think she spoke with you as well. Our concern is really twofold. One is, does it follow the scenic route rules? How many feet from the scenic route, which is Highland Street, does the fence have to be? On the photographs, you showed the fence on the opposite side of Highland, which is, I think, Fort Pelham.
Yeah.
That fence is aesthetically quite pleasing, right? And it's about the same height, but it is farther from the street. In front of that wooden fence, there is an old stone wall, and it all looks quite pretty. This
Why
one,
don't you go to that picture?
yeah. The new fence, as you pointed, it's kind of commercial looking. Frankly, if I use street language, cheap looking. You know, gray colored fence with no kind of distinctive features. And it appears much closer to the street. So it does create a very different feel when you drive past it from the Highland Street.
So is it closer to the street?
To the right of way, it is not closer than this fence, no, because this fence is like 5 feet from the right of way.
But
And,
to the street, it's closer.
yeah, so,
To the street is closer, right away, I don't know what.
Right away, so
Okay, anything else?
And then we're discussing the section of the fence facing the Highland. There's also a section of the fence facing our property. If I'm not mistaken, Mario, I believe it's right on the property line. And I was under the impression that there's a rule how many feet from the property line should the fence be, is it not? It's right on the property line between this property and our property.
so you can
If
you
it's
go
under
back
6
to
feet,
the-
it's not a structure. It
Yes,
needs to be
if it's
right on
under
the
6
property.
feet, it's not a structure, so you can put it up to the property
I
line.
see.
So,
So is it
what
under
Dimitri
6
was
feet?
talking
Is it
about
6
is this
feet?
little piece of fence right here. And he is correct, it's very close to the property line. It starts about 2 feet off the property line and it gets much closer, it's about
Right,
a
understood.
foot close to the property line, but it is on my property.
Understood. Anything else?
So height-wise, is it below the height, or is it 6 feet or below?
It is a 6 foot.
So then it is,
So that, what is the delineation of it's 6
It's
feet?
6 feet.
So if it is 6 feet, does it count as a structure?
No.
then?
No.
More
6
than
feet or
6
under.
feet. The fence across the street is taller than 6 feet, but it's grandfathered in because.
Yeah, so let me go to the
That's
next
different
neighbor.
then.
Do we have another neighbor that wants to speak up?
Yeah, we actually have a letter from a neighbor.
Okay.
Is that the,
Pass it
your
out.
letter or somebody else? Oh, well, there's somebody else here too, yeah.
No, it doesn't need to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, great, gotcha.
This is from Howard at 14 Black Oak.
Oh, I read this, yeah.
And to just touch point what he was discussing, is he defines what a scenic
Right, I
road
read
is. Wants to preserve the natural character of the scenic roads in Weston. Talks about how he lived here for 40 years, and the principal reason why he bought a home in Weston was to keep up the essential character of the town compared to other suburbs in Boston.
It's a reasonable point.
Then he talks about how it was, the fence is like an eyesore.
Right.
It's great, the previous house, so he goes into the previous house that was approved,
Right.
or before the approval. talking about it's gray low profile, now this new house is kind of,
Kim, do you think the problem could be solved with like an aggression? Or not, we're saying?
Well, I mean, so typically, in my experience with the planning board, we don't get into as much of the actual design of the
Yeah.
fence, but the location and the planting in front of it is more
Exactly.
the purview of the planning
Yeah,
board.
so why didn't we spend more time on that?
I don't think this was ever part of any
Yeah,
original plan.
No,
Yeah.
it wasn't on
So
the
you weren't
plan.
aware that you,
Okay,
this
so
was
it
part of
wasn't
the
No.
special? But I know
Um,
from Perry Mason, ignorance of the law is no excuse.
I agree with that. However, I will say.
You've certainly
and
been here
it's-
often enough.
No, I realize that, and I did make a call to town hall to try and clarify it, and I also saw another property that was a scenic road property, and they had put up a fence, and he told me that it was not reviewed, which was not true, I guess, I found out later. But it isn't, I will say, in my, obviously, I wouldn't have done this if I knew I needed approval for it. Everything that I read, so are you saying like even a play structure after the fact has to be approved?
No, play structures don't, because play structures have a specific exemption out of the state law that you can't regulate them.
Okay.
Fences are not subject to that.
Okay, so everything that I read, including my certificate, it was clear that it wasn't needed. However, what I did do, when I originally, can you go back to the site plan, please? My original plan, that's fine, I guess. My original plan was to install this fence 20 feet off of the road like that.
What happened to that?
Yeah, what happened to that original?
What happened with that is that I staked it out, and I had mock-up pieces of cardboard 6 feet tall, and I held the cardboard at every 20 feet or so to see, and I stood in the yard here, and I saw what was happening. There's a depression here, and it starts about here. So the 20 feet worked fine for here, but as you get closer to this area, the grade goes up to the road. So to go along that 20 feet, because you're closer to the house and because the grade is lower, the 6-foot fence, you could see more than half the cars driving by. You could see from basically the
Yeah, but you're
windows.
achieving 80% of what you want to do.
More like 50 at that point. It was
But just keep in
dramatic.
area, I'm saying you're achieving 80,
Right.
so.
So, when they came to actually install the fence, I told them, we're gonna have to get a little closer to the road, but I don't wanna get too close to the road because I wanna be able to have vegetation be able to grow and hide most of the fence. So I left 10 feet at the closest point, and it's
What do you
20
think?
feet.
I'm just interested in that, you know, in today's world, it's impossible to block out all road noise and, you know,
Oh, it's
sight.
doing it's definitely doing the job.
No, but I just feel that for you that's the driving force here, is that you wanted to block out almost all the traffic. I live on a very busy road. I think a lot of people in town do. Scenic roads are generally very busy.
A lot of us, yeah.
That is
On
one of the
Marion Street.
things that
Church
we
Street.
learn. You cannot put up a palisade fence and completely block all these things. And so as a result, we've got this narrow, a tunnel kind of view going on a single,
On a scenic
on a
road.
scenic road. And it would have been much better if you had put a lot more distance between your property line and this fence. And to me, that really is not a valid driver of, like, we can see a car occasionally go by.
Well-
And also, I'm not, you know, maybe the town is not necessarily responsible to guarantee your profit on this. And so maybe it's a very expensive house, I don't know. And it gets down into this this whirlwind of we're supposed to just allow these things to happen. And we shouldn't.
Okay.
And it's a precedent too, I mean, everyone else has to abide by the rules, and Mario, I know you're very well aware of Weston's planning board rules, I've been seeing you at these meetings for a million years.
So I understand what you're saying.
That's not fair to everyone else. May I
Well,
finish, please?
yeah.
Mario, just a minute. And then if all the neighbors were here and said, you know, we're in support of him and we're in support of what's happening there, then maybe we think, well, maybe we can make an exception. But that's not what I'm hearing, and
Well,
I drove down that street, I was shocked.
There are neighbors that don't have any objections to this, there are plenty of them.
That's true too, but we do have our
I understand.
guidelines.
Our guidelines are
And even if
guidelines.
everybody was totally for it, the fact is, we're supposed to enforce our guidelines.
Exactly.
So I do understand that,
Mm.
but one thing that I will say is the scenic road bylaw doesn't affect anybody except new development. So if this was not a new development, this fence could almost go right on the right of way.
But
And
that's not our purview, that's neither here nor there.
We can't
No, I
change.
understand
We
that.
are, you know,
No, I
charged with-
understand that.
Yeah.
I do understand that. But I put a lot of thought into, I tried to be as thoughtful as possible about where to place the fence. I mean, this fence
I
only
think we
looks
kind
like
of
a
worked out a
4-foot
solution
fence.
if you'd come to us, my sense
Mhm.
is,
Yes.
between
Right.
landscaping and placement of the fence, we could have worked out something, but this doesn't
For
seem
that
like
little
it's-
dip area,
This doesn't seem
Maybe
Well,
like.
I
it
mean,
would
the
have been a
fence
taller
doesn't even
fence
look
at that
4
point.
feet tall at that point because it's below the road.
I'm just saying that I'm agreeing with him, that if you gave us a chance to have an input, this
Maybe
wouldn't
even
have,
closer to the house.
this
than
wouldn't
that,
have
the dip.
happened.
Right. Well, I'm just saying that I honestly went into this thinking that this was not even a reviewable issue because,
Because a friend told you.
no, not because of friend, that's one of the things, but everything was pointing that way on everything that I looked at. And
When was this house built?
He just built it.
You
It's
just
still for
built it.
sale,
Yeah,
it's
it's
never
still-
been lived in, right?
no,
Right, yeah. It's brand
So I
new.
mean, it hasn't had time for any of the new plantings to mature.
Right.
no, not really. But I mean, the new plantings are not, I mean, you almost have to do what Leslie did and go into the property to see what she saw and she understood immediately why this fence was there and tried to work a solution so that everyone could be happy.
So are people feeling like minor changes or major changes are needed?
I honestly think the fence should be removed and we should move it back on the property and it should be done right.
I agree.
I'm not sure how anybody else feels.
Steve?
That's just my feeling.
It's difficult for me to make that judgment without seeing it. It sounds like that might be the thing that needs to be done, but I don't know.
It isn't removing a foundation, and we've certainly had people remove foundations after they've been shown to be in the wrong spot. I mean, you know that's within our purview, and.
So, do you want to schedule a sidewalk then?
Have you all seen it?
I haven't seen it.
Have you seen it?
Leslie's
I've just seen it from the street.
Oh, only Leslie saw it.
Yeah, Leslie
But
wrote
the
it.
idea of screening all traffic noise, I'm sorry, it's impossible. You built a house on a corner of a busy street. And you didn't take into account at the time of your application, you were standing there on the work site thinking, there's traffic here. And had you come to us at that time and put this in as part of the agreement, it would have been a very different conversation than what we're having now. And I don't.
So if, I mean, for example, I know Mr. Shashkov didn't come to that meeting. So if this was on my plan, you're saying that it wouldn't have been an issue, but because.
It would have been
If
part
we
of the
had approved
discussion.
it.
If we
I think we would have come up with a better solution.
Yes,
come up with a
exactly.
better
Yes.
solution,
There's no
Well,
question.
that would have made everybody
We
happy.
wouldn't have ended up there.
Right.
I'm pretty
It
sure.
wouldn't have, right, exactly, it wouldn't have ended
It's
up
like,
with
it's
that
really
corridor
channel,
effect.
yeah, it's the corridor
Yeah.
effect, the channel.
Well, that corridor effect is a very small piece of this. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
it's like
I-
less than 75 feet.
But as the roads get
it's
busier, everybody's gonna wanna
Yeah.
do that.
I'm
And
sorry?
I mean, as the roads get
Right,
busier, I'm
it's a
seeing it all
precedent.
over town.
Yeah.
People are putting fences up,
Yeah.
and
We have a question from the audience or comment?
Just wanted to make a quick comment if you have now. So I agree that the fence is slightly recessed, height-wise, it's a little bit lower than the road level. I walk there almost every day with my dog, but only slightly, maybe by a foot or two. So it does not look like a 4-foot fence. It looks like a fence which is roughly level with your eyes. And my main objection to this is not because of even the neighbor on the right that disturbs me in any way, but I think it creates a really ugly look. The styling
She
of the
calls it
fence.
a channel effect, I think. is what
Yeah,
she said.
but also the styling of the fence is very much out of style with anything else on the street or anywhere else in Weston, it's styled in a completely different way. It's like
Right, you said
rectangular,
that,
flat.
yeah,
there's no
you
feature.
said that, okay.
And
Got it.
that's the color.
Another comment?
And maybe I'll just make another comment that
Something new?
if objective is to reduce the noise, we live in the same section of the street and we are uphill, so the noise travels there even more. Vegetation over time creates much better noise insulation than any fence ever would. And frankly, you're correct, there's no understory, there's mature trees, so the area which creates the eyesight is completely open, but there's plenty of things which grow over time very well in this situation.
Okay.
Rhododendrons and spruces and others create a wonderful fence which protects both the visual as well as the sound. So
Good point.
I think there are better solutions.
Did you have a comment?
I'm just Brian Daly, I live 5 Knoxcott, I'm on the other side. That
Okay.
side. I don't
You have the fence?
the left side of the property, so the fence is on the right side of the road here.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's just, I'm just here just to see what's going on, that's all.
Oh, okay,
You know,
gotcha.
I don't have a, I do see the tunnel effect. I think maybe changing the color a little bit would be okay. Is there any way you could just have, grow a bunch of vines and have them grow quickly? I mean, it sounds like you, along with the vegetation with roadies and.
But that would be along the lines of the minor changes, so the changing of the color and adding vegetation in front of the fence. So, I'm gonna bring it back
Gentleman in the
here.
back has.
One more comment.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's very little fencing on Highland Road in general. There's
Yes.
the one across the street, and maybe there's 2 fences on the whole block. I
Yeah.
just think it would just.
Because it's a scenic road.
Yeah, and it would set a bad trend. I think there were a lot of fences might go up if we let this one in.
Yeah, right.
Because
Would
that's
encourage it
the
for
beauty of
people to-
Highland, you go down and you see these open vistas, and then suddenly you come to this little channel.
So I think we either suggest a major change, or Steve, if you want to go take a look at it, we can do that and continue the hearing.
Well, I mean, if everyone is ready to vote, that's fine, I'll
Well, what are we voting on? I'm voting,
We're
yeah,
voting to remove
To
the
remove
fence
the
or move
fence.
it back.
to remove the fence so that it can be.
I think we need
Come
to.
before
How
a
do we-
full
how do we
review.
vote?
I'm even concerned about just moving the fence. If you want to fence up,
No.
I'd like to go back to square one and say, let's review what
We
kind
have
of
to
fence,
review
let's
it.
review what color,
Right.
let's review the location.
Everything
Not
about
just
it.
say tonight. it
And
was
the
4 feet.
augmentation
Exactly.
and everything
But
like
does
that.
that mean in the meantime he removes it and then
Well, I
pending
mean-
the rebuild, or does that mean he keeps it till?
That's for EMI
Okay.
to decide, I think, right?
Oh, well, I wouldn't, you probably wouldn't get it removed by the time you get it all into
Exactly.
there.
We
So,
get
I
a
mean,
solution before we got.
Yeah, so I'd say let's get to the solution and then we.
Right. So are you interested in coming up with a solution that we agree with?
Well, I think when you do your
Or would you
sidewalk.
rather just not have a fence at all, therefore?
Well, I think that once you go out there and see the situation, that I think
Okay,
the
so
solutions
for
are.
you, I'm willing to do a site visit if Steve wants to do that. Can I continue this and have Steve and I visit with you out there? And
Sure.
anyone else that wants to join in?
Yeah, I just think
Is that a
if
fair
it's-
thing?
If it's on a day that I
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we'll do a site visit.
I would like you guys to see it, because I
Okay.
think you'd have a better, just like Leslie did.
But rules are rules, whether we
Yeah.
see it or not. It's not gonna change the fact that you broke the rule and did it your way, not the rest in.
And we don't want to waste your time. I'm not
Right.
optimistic about it, is all I'm saying.
Yes.
And it's 10.
Yeah, okay, so that's what we'll do.
Yep.
We'll continue it
Yep.
and we'll schedule a site
And we'll
visit.
schedule a site visit.
And
Yeah,
then neighbors
that's
will
great.
be noticed to the site visit if they wanna go,
Yeah,
or?
we'll do the full mail out
Right.
as a notification of the site visit.
Whole line.
Okay, and the next meeting will be quicker.
Yeah.
Thank you. Synthetic turf.
Jay, coming in.
Thanks, neighbors, for attending, we appreciate it. Appreciate your comments. Is the applicant here?
Jay is here.
Okay, oh, it's Jay.
Jay was the engineer on this one, so. So I'll kind of give an intro on this one as well.
You can be quick, right, Jen? 10 minutes?
Yeah.
10,
10 and under.
12.
Okay, good.
So this is 49 Lawrence. This is the house we reviewed. It was originally built at like the 599 level, and then they finished out the attic. They've done a number of changes. Kind of the last one was some changes to some planting and putting up a wall in the backyard area. This is the plan that was submitted for this. And you'll notice it calls out here around these areas lawn. So basically,
Lawn in quotes.
yeah. When I went out there for the final site visit, I noticed that what it was synthetic turf. Basically, it's
Everywhere?
No, just around the pool.
Just in the backyard.
just around the pool.
In
So
the,
all those areas that
recreation
were
area.
This is the.
that were lawn there.
That's information.
So, I mean, to me, two questions. There's the micro question here of, is this okay in this location? But it's also, is this an acceptable practice for the board to be okay with,
I loved it.
of using synthetic turf instead of actual, you
Do we
know,
have to define lawn?
grass,
Yeah,
lawn?
lawn as naturally growing plant material.
Yeah.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
It does raise questions.
Yes.
Well,
Is it a tree? Or
Yeah,
is it-
I know,
but
exactly.
it does raise
A real
questions
tree?
that we might actually
Or an
find somebody who does the whole front lawn.
I was gonna
And
say,
if
Right.
This
It's only
is
a matter of
around the
time.
pool, and
It's
it's
only a matter of
recreation, I
time.
can absolutely understand why.
It's nice and green, you don't
Yeah, and also,
hose it down once more.
there's the thing with, this is probably less obnoxious to the environment than our general lawn.
No irrigation, no
No
chemicals.
irrigation, no
No
chemicals.
clippings.
true.
It actually has,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the same thing as like you do for your football fields, baseball fields, that kind of stuff, so it's actually fully permeable.
Artificial turf, huh?
Yeah, well, no, but, right.
She's putting it in her yard.
But I think, and I think the client actually,
I
he
think
basically
there are
installed
uses
it.
for it, is what I'm saying. But we have to think, do we want it,
Yeah, yeah.
we might have to actually call it out from now.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So what do you have to add besides the obvious?
So I think because the client ended up doing this without the design team knowing about it, we just
Right,
found it.
exactly.
And I think what his intent was that, look, everything's surrounded, it's all fenced in. We have, as you can see from the
It's
photos,
for
it's all
convenience.
And
padded.
it's all impervious, isn't it?
This is all
It's all
impervious.
impervious.
That's
And then this
crazy.
lawn here is actually, if you look from the permeability test, it takes 41 inches an hour of
So
rain.
it's
So
as lawn?
That's lawn.
Okay.
And so lawn doesn't take that at all.
Okay, got it.
So it's a great drainage use, but because he didn't want to have to, when he's cutting the grass, he's like, I don't want clippings in the pool, I don't want to be having to throw clippings on the area,
Yeah.
I don't have to irrigate the backyard now, so for this application in particular, I felt, even though we weren't part of the design, it wasn't brought to the board, it was a great application.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
And
And
is all
especially
of
after
those
going on
lawns?
Pine Brook Country.
No, just the
Walking
one.
on
Yeah,
the-
the rest is lawn.
Yeah, it's these four, yeah.
Oh, so it is those four?
Oh, all four are artificial? Oh,
Yeah.
I thought just
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, and so this is all non, this
But
is
you
all
still call
non-grass.
it lawn, which is very funny.
Well, no, this was the,
Lawn.
that's
Oh,
what.
that's the original.
That's the
Okay,
plan that got
it. All right,
approved.
got it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to just call out in the future, I think, artificial turf.
Yeah,
But if
exactly.
you look from the photos, I don't know if you might have the photos I had sent.
Yeah, I do.
Synthetic turf,
You
whatever
ready?
you call it
Honestly,
on here, yeah.
until you walk up on it, you can't tell
No, I
that it's
know.
actually
That's
artificial
good.
turf.
No, I could tell.
Until you get all the
Yeah.
pellets.
I could tell. I looked at it. I was like, this thing is way too regular to be.
Exactly.
Come on, we were at Pine Brook, do you remember, and going on the putting green there?
Oh.
Yeah, so
So that's this one little area that's shown on this plan, that's in this section right here. I'm like, so that'd be extremely hard to grow grass there to begin with. And so there's that one section that's adjacent to the actual driveway. So and then you have,
Sorry.
you have plantings around it. So as you start looking
Are
at
they
it.
real plants?
They are real plants.
Sorry.
They are real plants.
But you know, the other thing is, this is pervious as opposed to having stone
Exactly.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think we have to,
I mean, you
Be
could call
aware of it
out
in the
bark
future.
or something. You could just say bark. I have trouble because it's just not natural in our standard criteria to talk about natural setting.
Correct.
you know?
Yes, but we don't talk about natural centering so much around the pool, the swimming pool.
Can this be seen by abutters or anyone?
No,
No,
it's
actually-
like woods behind it.
Yeah, it's
If you do the one, there's one in there.
Oh, it's almost like inside.
I mean, to me,
That's from the
All
actual
right,
trail.
well, you, I mean, you're like the
I
essence.
was out there.
Well, that's the one.
That's for me.
But I think the way it is fenced
keep on
off,
going.
it's in this.
That is it.
I don't wanna
It's
see them
contained.
That's the
rolling
last
down
picture
the
you can
front
have
of the
there.
Exactly, that's why we have to call out
Exactly.
from now on.
To say in this enclosed
Invisible,
area.
yeah.
Well,
It's not
Highly
visible.
visible
Right,
areas,
exactly.
Yeah.
you
All
must
right, wow,
use
you guys
natural
landed
terms.
a different spot than I thought you were going to land.
Well, I think then that also brings up the discussion is, again,
I don't know
You
you
don't-
guys, I feel like I don't know you.
the general push is against a lot of lawn,
Absolutely.
regardless of
Yes,
if it's grass lawn. The grass lawn doesn't have a great environmental footprint in
It's
of
a
itself.
wasteland.
Yeah,
Kim,
It's a
how are you
wasteland.
feeling?
so,
This is a purely philosophical issue, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right, really?
I can see both sides.
Okay.
If you're asking my charge with the planning board is
Yeah,
to
exactly, you look at the
consult on
standards or
how-
criteria and,
Is it visible from outside, and it's not, so.
okay, got it.
So
you know,
there it is.
It's
That's a fair point of view.
how much do we wanna engross ourselves in the design, personal preference as a homeowner, if we can't see it, and I try to
Right.
stay out of that.
Okay, that's fair.
Yes.
That's a good point.
Anybody disagree with that?
Oh,
No.
somebody has.
Okay.
No.
But this
Any
constant
comments?
Comment from the audience.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I,
You just need to identify yourself.
oh, yes, Barbara Fullerton, 3 Winter Street. So I am opposed to using synthetic turf. I think this is a bad precedent. I mean, I don't know you are at all, so I.
He sells
Nothing
it.
personal.
Decide.
Just follow
He's a
her.
salesman.
Exactly.
Except that, like, maybe it was 20 years ago when there was a lot of discussion in town about using synthetic turf on the,
Exactly.
in the school areas.
Well,
And at the time then, they were using ground up crumb rubber tires, ground up tires. And there were a lot of pollutants that are associated with that, which then would get into kids' clothing and go home with them and get all over everything, and they'd be breathing in these fumes.
you're concerned about the health issues, you're saying?
So, well, that's one thing, and I don't know what the substrate is now for your synthetic turf. Is it still crumb rubber?
Maybe.
Or, so in recent years, I haven't been following this topic avidly lately, but I know that some school gave a presentation and they said they were using ground up plastic as opposed to rubber tires, and so they thought that was much better.
yeah.
Except if anybody has been listening to the news for the last year or so, everybody now is concerned about microplastics getting into the water.
The water.
Water
into your liver.
systems, into
Yes.
your,
Yeah.
you know, getting
Yeah.
into your well, or if there's stormwater runoff, that some, you know, these plastics will migrate away from where you start them out.
Yeah.
And so that's a bad thing too, to have plastics in our environment. So what is this?
This is
It's,
rubber.
Is
It's
it
a
rubber?
We, you know, years ago, we had people come
Rubber-
before us for the
Does that mean
the
rubber
schools,
tires
and then we
or
had our
rubber?
most recent.
Yeah.
study,
Okay.
and it was absolutely
Just
9 ways
well,
to Sunday
rubber
proved
here.
to us that it was
Right.
all
Healthy.
right, that it
Right.
was stable.
Same.
What
Because
was
the
that?
early, well, I'm just saying that we've had a
The
long
football
history
field.
with the planning
This-
board.
Yeah.
Soccer field.
With,
soccer field.
in the early iterations of this, evidently, as the kids wore it, you know, it was on
Yeah.
athletic fields,
Right.
it would start to plume. It became unstable, the rubber, it would become
Right.
unstable, so they breathe it and take it home and all that stuff. But allegedly, and we allowed it in the high school, on the fields there.
On the football field.
Yes.
area.
Yeah.
Yes,
And there's
so,
a synthetic
and it's a
turf
synthetic
soccer
turf,
field
right.
too.
Right.
And so, we were convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt.
But another
I
point
think
that,
this is study.
go on.
I don't even know if this is the same time though.
And it does degrade over time and will require replacement. And then you're gonna have to roll up your giant lawn and dispose of it somehow, and
But
your
that's
yard
true.
you can reseed and.
But as Kim so beautifully stated, this gets to be a philosophical.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, but the
Only
issue
because
is
that's
that
my,
you still,
I'm not looking at this from a health issue, I'm looking at this
Yes.
From,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
planning
Yeah.
board
Right.
issue.
But we
So
do
I
have,
don't know
in
how
our
you-
standards criteria is safety and health, I think.
yeah, I don't know how you can
Okay, I have a
stabilize.
proposal.
Yeah.
Imai, could you check with the Board of Health and make sure that this material is safe?
That's a
Sure.
good idea.
Okay, so why don't we issue that as a
Yep.
condition?
Yep, I
Okay.
can
Okay.
send all info to Wendy.
Okay, and we'll have Wendy review it.
And I think that
Make sure-
because
make
it
sure it's
is limited and it is within that enclosed garden area, an exception to our
Yeah.
normal preference for natural materials could be made.
Right, the
Right.
question is it safe for the environment?
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
And for the health of the people living there?
Right.
I think
And we
that's
can
the
have that
question.
same question for the
Long term.
pesticides,
Yes.
the
Right.
weed killers,
Yeah.
the weed preventers, and all
You're
the
right, you're
other
absolutely
thousands
right.
and thousands and thousands of pounds of chemicals that are dumped in
Yeah.
the name of keeping healthy green turf.
Not
So
in my
is
yard.
there,
Right.
is there a way to prevent the plastics or whatever it is infill from migrating down to his neighbor's?
Probably not. I would guess there's.
Because the chemicals migrate down
Yes.
into your well.
Yeah, it's bad too.
I know, yeah, but
So
this
we're-
is a discussion for another time.
We're gonna have an opinion from the
Yeah.
Board of Health on
Yes.
that.
So,
Okay.
question, is there any issue here with, again, doing something they weren't allowed to do? Or there's nothing in our
They stated.
certificate of action that says it has to be
Any punishment, you mean?
Yeah.
natural? I'm not
No.
looking for
They did
punishment.
state lawn.
It just said lawn.
It just
It
said
just says
lawn.
lawn.
Yeah.
It became a function
But
of,
But I think
Well,
any
ju-
interpretation would lead you to believe
what,
it
did
didn't follow
they
this.
put in
Yes.
a natural lawn first and then replace it with this? Or was this?
No, I think the fact that they're
The
asking for
intent
an
was
amendment.
natural lawn, and then
Yeah.
the client thought this would be a great application
They're-
for
they're
this.
admitting
Install
that-
it without us saying.
They're admitting that it's inconsistent with stupid action because they're asking for an amendment.
No, but they didn't admit it, EMI found it.
No, but now
What do you
they're.
mean they're asking for an amendment? It's already been put in. I mean, here
Yeah.
we are again, where something
Yes,
is already
exactly.
done after the fact.
Yes.
So are
This is
you-
what I'm questioning.
You guys aren't interested in reversing it, is what
I am not, because it's very private.
I mean, even if it was
Well, I
before you.
want to hear what the environmental and health
Yeah,
implications
exactly.
are.
I'm fine with
I
that.
think that's
Okay.
good, and let's
Yeah, I'm
continue
fine
and
with
wait
that.
to hear.
Wait, are we continuing it?
Yeah,
Or are
that's
we
what-
saying it's contingent upon approval by the Board of Health? I don't think we need to hear it again.
No, but maybe we need to revisit it depending on what the things are.
Well, the Board of Health says it's not safe, then
Alright.
they don't get
Well,
it.
well, if the Board of Health says it's not safe, they wanna know that anyway.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
They
But
absolutely
also-
wanna know that.
We have to know about this particular artificial turf that was installed.
yeah,
Right.
so
Right,
here's the
exactly.
spec.
You
Yes,
give me
this
the Board of
is
Health is
safe.
gonna do.
Well,
Yeah.
you got the specs, they were
And I
handed
have
didn't
this,
see the
I give,
specs,
I mean, I give mine a couple, but there's,
Yeah.
the spec sheets that I have, there's like 12 of them, of all the different testing they've done on it, so I'll give all that to
Yes,
EMI,
right.
That's true,
Right.
yeah.
it's easy enough.
Okay. Anything
Okay.
else?
And then with that, if find it safe, then it's approved, right? So that's,
Yeah, well, and the decision is when? We'll just make sure that the Board of Health has adequate time to review.
So, yeah, we could.
They might not be able to meet 2-week deadline or whatever.
So we'll try for this 10-2 if you guys want to review decision on it. and-
Or if the Board of Health for some reason wants an extended conversation, great, you know,
Yeah.
we'll entertain it.
Okay,
Yeah, so no review of the decision until they review.
Exactly.
That's all.
okay.
Great. Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you.
That was a real meeting we just had.
Yeah.
You want a real amendment? Okay, letter support.
Oh,
We're on our final laps here, guys.
we're on
Yeah.
our final laps. I do need a A&R signature here.
We're skipping the tavern?
I don't know why you want.
Oh, is it, are we on the tavern? Sorry,
CPC.
I am skipping the
report.
tavern apparently.
Yeah.
And the skating
My
pond,
bad.
oh no, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, sorry, I ran over that. Okay.
Let me get out, okay?
Night.
Night, night.
Sleep tight. Hey, thanks for
Remember when it was going on, so it's-
that. Yeah, it started slow. We'll get a lot.
as everyone gets tired.
Let me get you yours back, Tony.
No, I already.
You read it already? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I just didn't know if you want to look at it again while everybody
No,
else
I'm
is.
good.
Okay.
Letter support, guys?
Jeez.
I thought it was very well written. And tell them what she had asked for, you mind? She didn't
So this
ask for
is,
a letter.
last meeting, if you remember, Adrian came by and asked for the planning board to write a letter of support to the CPC for the Smith, for funding the Josiah Smith Tavern, and she specifically said she wanted it like relative to what the planning board reviewed.
Standards and criteria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in my letter,
So
basically,
it's
I
not
picked,
just, we like the idea.
yeah, I picked out a few of
Yes.
larger standards and criteria, the ones that are really
The biggies.
highlighted in this issue, and
That
yeah.
stuff.
There's one typo though, under design harmony, it says with overall, with an overall, landscape.
Oh, okay, yeah,
With
with an overall landscape.
Yeah, very good pickup, huh?
Just graduated.
Yeah.
You're in planning
I
board.
found another one.
Okay.
Well, you always find another one. Go ahead, what is it?
I just want to read this. Yeah, this is great.
Okay.
You guys okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, surprising.
I just have a couple of very minor typos I'll
Okay.
just give to Imai.
Oh, okay.
Great,
Discuss
great.
them.
Hey, Mike, do we need to take a vote?
No, you don't need to take a vote on
Okay,
this,
great.
as long as this
Okay.
is consensus, it's a
Great.
support
Great
letter.
work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Thank you very much. And then, now,
Grand finale?
no, now we,
No, it's been really.
A&R plan to endorse. These signatures, if you would, please. Get the pen.
It's easier if we leave this in one place and have people walk through it, I think.
Okay.
Rather than kind of walk around. So why don't you start? I'll do that.
Just down here?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
And then 3 times, there's 3 sheets here. The most important one is the Mylar.
And don't make fun of my signature.
So what are we dividing here?
This is 26 skating pond. So this is actually, if you remember when they did 18 skating pond, there were all these weird little lots. And then, so a piece got sold to 18 to put it frontage on Boston
Right.
Close, and now the pieces that got consolidated here are being divided into
Is this
two
a
lots.
different lot?
It's a different lot, yeah.
So right
It's
now
still,
this
it's
is,
2 lots right now. It's actually 2 buildable lots and 1 unbuildable that's being consolidated into 2 normal buildable lots.
okay, so it's being changed from 3 to 2.
Yes,
And
but
they're
no
all-
gain in buildable lots.
They're all conforming and buildable now.
Yes.
So how was it before?
It had like a little weird piece here and like, yeah, there was for a while like this strip that went along here that like part of it became part of 18 and then,
So this is an improvement.
yeah, it's more regular now.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Can't get ahead.
Oh, I know, that's the way it was. Oh my God.
Yes, please.
I'll push this through.
You stop moving.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just trying to make it so you can get back in without climbing.
Just stop that movement.
Thank you. Just put that in. Okay.
Okay, now. start with- Okay, now.
Is it? Oh. Upstairs.
Oh, we can see it.
Yeah, I know. What are the chances? Did we find the bottom one? Actually, find the bottom one.
I can't recognize anybody saying.
I know, we all have very, no, you don't have conceptual, Steve kinda has conceptual. He's actually spelled
That must be it.
You're a very patient lady, that's what I mean.
That must be it.
Okay, we done with that?
Yeah.
If everybody's signed, yes,
Yeah.
we are. Okay.
Okay, decision number one.
This is number 120 Windsor, which I need
Yeah.
the signing pen back.
Okay,
So
great.
we have it next time.
So everyone remembers this is the fence that was around the pool?
All right, okay, yeah, we had
And Leslie
a
went to
little
look
bit
at
of
it.
Leslie went to go take a look at it, she didn't have an issue with the
Yeah, and I
chain
said it
link
was under.
on the back, and she worked with Mike to figure out a
Okay,
solution.
Mike, wanna get
Right.
2 minutes maybe?
That's all we need, folks.
Great, yeah.
So, I did meet with Leslie, we looked at the perimeter fence, I think she was very comfortable with
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
The only thing we told her that she wanted us to look at was the fence that, actually, I don't know if you need to bring it up, but we actually had a fence that came across here, stuck up on the wall, and then came down behind
Right,
the wall, and
right.
she didn't like the idea of a 4-foot fence on top of a 2-foot wall.
Right.
So when I was with her, we discussed it, we'll look at a way and see if we can't put a 2-foot fence on top of the 2-foot wall to get our 4-foot enclosure. The problem is, we can't core drill, get the boards out to the edge of the wall to make that work very well. Because you have to core drill for the fence post into the top of the wall, which would blow the wall apart. I had the fence installers look at it. So we came up with a solution that I think will satisfy sort of Leslie's concern. And what we did is we pulled the fence completely away from the wall. And we got a planting separation so that when you look in from the street, which is here, this is our fence coming off the wall, and it actually goes up, and the fence will ride up above the wall, but in amongst the planting, so the planting will diminish it. And looking in from Skating Pond Road, all that you will see is the very top of that 4-foot fence. And it kind of accomplishes, I think, what Leslie's objection was, which this big wall of fencing.
Right.
So I think we came up with a solution that structurally works, and then the wire fence takes off at the same point over here. So,
Right.
I think we accomplished what she wanted
That was
us to
Because
accomplish.
I know I was objecting at the
Right.
first meeting.
Right. And then the wire fence was,
Yeah.
and then everything else, I think, all the engineering has been resubmitted.
Yeah, I have those
Drawings are
plans
all
as well.
up to date.
Okay, that is expressed in the new engineering drawings?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it's here.
Okay, Steve, Sue, you okay with what you just described?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, then review the decision.
Thanks. Okay. When will the decision, I can talk.
No, we're not quite done with it.
Yeah, okay.
Decision's about to be done.
Yep.
I already gave my comments to you, right?
Oh, you gave them to Dana?
Dana, I gave you my comments.
You're not supposed to give them ahead of time.
But I thought the new note said we are.
Yeah,
No, you're supposed to come.
We
with-
review,
Come
right,
review
yeah,
with you,
okay.
yeah.
Uh-oh.
Mine were all
What's the
minor.
point of
Mad.
giving them to him ahead of time?
Because they were so minor, they were not
Okay.
reviewing as a group.
But what you distributed should be what we.
Yeah, that's exactly what I
Yeah,
did.
everybody's,
without any
everybody's
changes.
operating from the same version.
Before I did Leslie's
Great.
comments, now I'm just doing the original copy.
Great.
And I did notice I screwed up these things.
Yeah. Did you not read that ahead of time?
No, I did not.
We gotta sit around and watch you read.
I'm sorry. I had a rough day today.
Evelyn would speak
Hey.
reading class.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing.
Although you guys probably did a much better job.
I come early. What do you think?
That was just here.
Oh.
I would record this gallery because it's a big structure.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Sue.
I move that we.
Oh, no.
No, 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 changes.
Oh, they will change. Oh, I thought you were saying, well, go ahead and do it.
It's
Whoa.
late, it's
Oh,
very late.
jeez. Okay, okay. The little change is on page 6, existing AC conditions and R. AC units and R.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Just delete the word and.
yes.
Steve, did you have any?
Yep. So, items on page 5, items 1A and 1F, assuming that the CCs are correct, which I think they are, I need to refer to the special condition F1, right? And it's PTO, prior to occupancy. And then item 1E on that same page, second to last line should be existing edge, so the S is missing. And
And I have another one
Oh,
too.
wow, you're trying to wake us
I
up?
have one more, under minimized shadows, it says the pool house cabana is not taller than the existing house. The only shadows that will be casted.
Cast, right.
that will be cast.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that one.
You didn't?
No.
Oh, that's the one I had. Cast.
And very good, and then one more, item
Yeah, I
10, you need to delete and replace on the third line, those two words, because they're not needed. And also delete the F1 and the PTP, because it doesn't apply to these. And that's it. I move that we.
Wait.
No,
Sorry.
Okay, we got you covered. Go ahead, Steve.
Sorry, I got carried away. I move that we approve the certificate of action amendment for 20 Windsor Way with modifications noted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
Unanimous, right.
Okay,
Huh.
thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you
Appreciate
for the late night.
the extra term with Leslie, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana.
All right, bylaw amendment.
Bylaw amendment. Yeah.
So we're not reviewing the bylaw amendment.
We're reviewing the recommendation to the moderator,
Okay.
which is the last step we need to do as
Just to
part of.
remind people, last time did we approve of the bylaw amendment? Did we take a vote the last time?
No.
Okay.
And
so
I don't think
reviewed
you need to take a vote really on the bylaw
it. We
amendment.
reviewed the amendment language.
Yeah, you reviewed the amendment, you're okay with it.
For not taking a vote, I don't need to recuse myself.
No, we need to take a vote on what the recommendation is. So, I mean, and that's your vote on the amendment, really, is your recommendation to the moderator. That's the action the board needs to take.
Steve, you're recusing yourself from
I
this?
have to, because I'm on one of those corner lots. I
Really?
sent you an email about this.
Okay, yeah, remind me of that one.
I did the
first
one.
one.
Which
Oh.
lot are you talking about? The
Got it.
spike strips,
Does that mean I-
that are
I
created?
mean, I'm on a scenic
The
road,
proposed
so
bylaw
I'm
would
on
only
a.
affect lots created. Are
Could
you
you
talking
create
about
a
the
spike
original
But
lots
I-
that they're
it would do
created
me
from?
no
Or
good
are you
because I'm not
talking
s-
about the spike
I guess.
strip?
Oh, I guess I could.
Both, because when you do that, you create two new lots.
Hey, you might come to think of it,
But-
could we all put in spike strips?
Because then we wouldn't be on scenic
We're all
roads
on
now.
scenic road.
You couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You couldn't
So
do
we
it
all
because
have
you
to
don't have a
include
corner.
that.
You have to have a.
You don't have a corner,
Oh,
you
I
don't
have
have a
it
corner,
in
you don't
front.
have a corner.
Okay,
Why
so
does
it's
it-
a corner, gotcha.
Because that's the only way you could maintain the frontage.
Oh, okay.
Although you'd be a non-conforming
You can't have a
lot.
long driveway.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't have a flag lot. Your lot will become unbuildable.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, got it. Darn,
Oh,
that
well,
would have been so.
that would have been so cool, it's right.
I know if we
It's
all.
really effective once the bylaw becomes effective, not as of July 13th. Right now, you can still do it until the bylaw.
You can still do it till the bylaw becomes effective, but that standard will still come and apply to you, the bylaw.
Right,
You
but
can-
why, it's the
you-
state. I don't understand the state.
That date is the date that the hearing was noticed, that's the earliest date we can apply that.
But what I'm saying is that I don't see how this bylaw can apply until it's passed.
It's
and enacted
retroactive.
by the
It's
legislature.
retroactive. Use the word
Because
retroactive.
they heard it, the first time they heard about it, they could suddenly run out that day and apply.
Yeah.
So this is
Alright.
preventing them from doing
Our
that.
council has advised us, it's
But couldn't
retroactive.
people still do it right now?
Sure,
They could
try
do it
it.
right now, and they do it at their
They
own
could try
risk,
doing
that,
it.
you know,
Right.
that they'll get caught later.
Yeah.
Steve, I have a point of order question, just from an educational standpoint.
What is the frontage of your two, your two corners of your lot?
My lot?
Yeah.
But wait, that's
It's-
not,
I don't know why it's relevant, but it's church
You
and
wouldn't need to recuse
Coburn.
yourself if you can't create a space strip, and you can't create a space strip if your lot would become non-conforming because you didn't have,
It won't
because you're
become.
creating a new it would be a lot that wasn't pre-existing prior to 1997 unless it's 250 feet in residential A and 200 feet in residential B.
Well, it's a conforming lot now. I did ask that question, would any of these lots become non-conforming once you created this spice?
Yeah, you have, because you're recreating a new lot, you're changing your lot, which makes the lot, a new lot created after 1997. I'm not sure that you need to recuse yourself, but I don't know, because I don't know the frontage of your lot,
But it doesn't matter, because
just stay focused on this
Yeah,
language.
let's look at this, yeah, we'd like to all go home.
I had slight grammar changes there, obviously.
Okay. So that's what we've already read, is your grammar changes are in
No,
No.
No.
Tommy's gave them to me, this is,
there.
again,
I marked up this copy.
Okay.
Steve, you can review this for citizens' comments as well.
I did. I think I already gave you my comments in my email. I don't think there's anything.
Do you know of his citizens' comments? And
Yes.
Okay.
so,
I had trouble by this last thing.
Yeah, I did it and I tried to fix it and it ended up being.
But I said it said keeps those lots currently subject to site plan approval.
Okay, fine, that's great.
works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
You're dropping remaining so?
Remaining
Yes.
so.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good to me.
That's my only change. Except I had to stick up for this.
So any changes from you?
No.
Okay. Did you want to vote on this, did you say?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess we need to be unanimous, so.
I move that we approve the comments to the moderator for the zoning bylaw amendment change,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
except for one recusal.
Right, and one recusal, thank you.
Okay. And then Steve did minutes?
You did, bless your heart.
Trip down memory lane back in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bless your heart for doing that.
I did get them assigned.
Yeah,
I
you
forget,
did.
were they the 227?
You did 227, yep.
Did anybody do 2.6? That was yours, right? Did you do 2.6 or not?
I don't remember having
Okay.
it assigned to me.
I thought I signed them to you,
You
sir.
probably did.
Okay.
How many months ago?
No, I recently, like a week ago,
No
2
matter,
weeks ago.
Oh,
no matter.
Yeah.
sorry.
No worries.
So we're gonna approve the minutes from 2:27?
Right.
Somebody wanna move?
Shouldn't be me since
I move that we approve
And I
the
can't vote on it.
minutes
because-
from February 27th, 2019. Or was this 18?
19. It's bad enough.
So we have 2?
I think it was
Second.
one.
No, I
Okay,
guess
I
it's-
All in
Just
favor?
the
All in
27th,
favor?
right?
Someone else should second it.
Yes, a second.
I second it.
Okay, aye.
All in favor?
Aye, yes.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we have one recusal on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So, 2 to 6.
All right, and then
Okay,
just
town plan report.
the very last thing, yeah, to go
Very
over.
short one,
Town
right?
planner.
Very short town plan report, because I just want to make sure we're
Oh,
all up to date on the calendar. So, for the 24th, we have this site visit at Zero Hidden. That's the one we were supposed to have
oh,
Yeah.
sweet.
yesterday, but we
Hornets
were
nest.
afraid of hornets.
Yeah.
So we took those away. The 25th is our next and last tree removal site visit. And we're going around, we're going Summer and Ridgeway. And then we will have this on October 1st will be a site visit to 162 Highland, but that'll just be a one-member site visit. But again, as we let everybody know, so if somebody's interested, they can come along to that one.
Wait a minute, you're talking too fast for me, for the,
Yeah.
just
Sorry.
the 25th that's the tree removal, so that'll be at 8 AM again? and-
That'll be at 8 AM, yes.
Okay, got it.
And so there's no 55 Hidden Road on the 24th?
No,
Okay.
we just did
55 we
55.
did.
Oh,
55 we did yesterday.
you did?
Yeah.
Oh, you weren't there?
No.
Yeah.
Zero
It
is-
was a good one, actually.
And then 0 is what we're doing on the
Yeah, it is.
24th.
I tell you, it's been a terrible week for me.
I enjoyed that.
All right, well, so we're going 55 next week?
You can
0
go up,
next
we'll
week.
take you up to 55.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it's right there.
So-
We can go look at it anyway.
Okay, good.
Okay, I'm sorry to stop you in my.
No, that's all right, so now I'm completely
Okay.
confused, but that's all.
It's up on the board if you wanna-
And you're gonna schedule
I can't read
Marion.
that anyway.
Oh, okay.
And
You're gonna schedule Marion.
And then once, sorry.
Who's going on the one on the 25th?
Anybody who's
Um,
available.
Alicia.
Okay.
I'll come, but I can't stay for the, I can't stay forever like today.
Okay. And then, yeah, 162 Highland is a one-member visit. And then our next meeting is on the 2nd.
Right, okay.
Okay?
Okay. I smell an end here.
And I'm gonna be late, I told you, but, because that's high school back to school night on the
Yep.
second, so you'll have quorum for the things at the beginning, so.
Yep. We will.
Oh, the lady was mentioning that though.
Yes,
school what?
exact, back to school night.
And tell me again about the tree walking thing for
Okay.
resource.
People ready to go home?
That's
Yeah.
the 25th.
Yeah, where is it starting?
Ridgeway.
Ridgeway, what number Ridgeway?
I move that we
I
adjourn.
don't know.
Anybody
I
second?
don't have a play. I think we're
All
gonna
in
start
favor?
on the second,
Aye.
because
Aye.
there's something